Okay, I'd like to call the February 27th regular meeting of the Bethel Inland Wetlands Commission to order. The time is 7:05. First item I'd like to do is introduce commissioners. I am Chairperson Pat Parafort. Why don't you go ahead, Greg?
Greg Johnston, Vice Chair. Nicholas Jordan, Commissioner member.
Let's go on the screen. Danielle.
Danielle Monroe, alternate.
Okay, Laura.
Laura Ferguson, Commissioner.
Okay, let's stay on the Zoom. James, you want to introduce yourself? He's a town employee, right?
Yes.
So.
Sorry, James DeMeo, Town of Bethel, civil engineer.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm in 2 meetings at once. I apologize.
No problem.
Dave McCollum, Inland Wetlands Agent.
Okay.
Casey Galvez, Recording Secretary.
Great, thank you. And if possible, I'd like to seat Danielle for this meeting in place of one of the commission members that's not here right now. Do I have to name one? Okay.
So you would be seating them for,
Kevin?
actually, no, Kevin's gonna be here.
No, I picked one.
Oh, okay. Oh, so technically you don't need to seat Danielle, my apologies.
Sorry, Danielle, go back to your coffee. Thank you. All right, so Dave, do we have any modifications to tonight's agenda?
Not at this time, Mr. Chairman, but thank you for asking.
Okay, so at this time, I'd like to continue the public hearing for 17 Whitney Road. Does that have to be read in?
No, it does not.
Okay. Is the applicant present?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so you have any follow-up from the last meeting?
First, I'd like to just introduce myself. I'm Ken Slater of Cameron and Sadie, representing the applicant.
Okay.
Mike and Jim McManus will have the speaking parts tonight, but I just wanted to introduce myself.
Welcome, thank you.
Sure.
For the record, Mike Mizuko, professional engineer representing the applicant, and we did respond to the letters that we had from both Wetlands and P&Z, and we submitted revised plans, not anything major. There was also a revision to the drainage report based on comments from the town engineer. And so I can just walk you through the revisions. There's also some minor changes with regard to utilities from the public utilities director. So nothing changed on the first 2 sheets. Existing conditions, I think there was just an error on the map. We corrected that. So other than that, nothing really. Oh, we did just added some notes from the public utilities with regard to terminating some of the existing connections. They wanted to make sure that we, in addition to terminating it here, also plugging it in the manhole.
That's a sewer line.
That's a sewer line,
Yes.
correct? Yeah. Again, we added some other notes with regard to the other utilities with regard to terminating those, and they would be done in the manner and procedures for the utility for which the services come from.
Like, how do you plug in the manhole? You're not using backhoe, you just.
No, you would just get down in there and you get a plug, expanding neoprene plug and just plug in.
Okay.
All right.
Just like that.
Just if you want to go to the next sheet. We added the mechanical pads to the site plan. There was an errant snow storage area that we fixed.
Like, where's the snow storage area? 'Cause I know that came up.
Here,
Okay.
here, along here, and of the parking here, and there's another area over here.
So, question for you. The snow storage area to be used to plow snow onto is behind where all the cars are parked?
Yeah, they would plow into the corner and push snow, yeah.
All right, and the one down below, it's literally all the cars have to be moved.
Right, I mean,
that
they gotta get
realistic?
in there, well, they gotta get in there and plow, so. They gotta, I know, sometimes it takes them, many times to come into the lot, but. The reality of it is they're gonna have cars missing at times that they're gonna plow that snow in there.
Okay,
Okay, so I think that was about it for the site plan. Okay, on the site utilities, when I initially did the calculations for the water quality volume, I only did the increase of the impervious area on the site, so it was asked that we do the entire impervious area. And so what that did, it increased obviously the water quality volume. And so we had to provide more storage to store that volume in the drainage system. And what it ended up doing was we had to raise the outlet pipe to create the additional storage. So, yep, I think it was another 6 inches or so, if I remember correctly, that would provide the additional storage that we needed. And the outlet was originally an 11-inch orifice. It's now a 12-inch orifice. Still, it's below the pre-developed flows, but it just allowed us to basically to provide the additional volume for the new water quality volume. So the nice thing about it is it provides more storage volume before you get any discharge out of the system. So we didn't need to increase the number of galleries, the length or anything like that. It was just sort of modifications of the pipe size and the outlet elevation. And we did add, public utilities requested that we do a separate line for the fire protection because the building is sprinklered, and the domestic line. And they also asked for a meter pit just after the property line. And then we added some notes to that effect. There was a standard condition. We added a note about inspecting the underground detention system by the Public Works, prior to backfilling. So we added that note to the plan. And then the other comment from the town engineer was with regard to the work that was done, the excavation and site disturbance up in this area here on the western side of the property. And just responded that the work was under the 500 cubic yards, which is allowable without a permit, and that it was, none of it was in the regulated area. So, well, when we did, if you page down, David. Again, that didn't change.
is that the light calculations?
Yes, it is.
I know Nico, did you have a question on that last time?
Yeah.
So,
Well, you had a question about the lights heading out into.
right,
Correct.
Which, we, pretty much from here, it's all 0 foot candles.
I was concerned also about the car lights, pulling in and parking in the parking spaces. And those.
Right, and I think the good thing is you get the dumpster here. So even if you're driving down to park, you're gonna be hitting into the dumpster. And then once you turn, your headlights are going perpendicular to the line, to the wetlands. So that shouldn't be a real issue.
I still don't see why you guys couldn't put a couple of bushes there, evergreen shrubs or trees, small trees, to make sure that no, weird lighting goes into there. But I don't see why that would be different.
Yeah, again, I think if there was a need, if we had nothing here, in terms of, the fence on the dumpster is probably gonna be 6 feet high.
So when they're driving in, you're saying that's a 6 foot high, like solid fence, wood fence?
Yes. Yeah. And that's the main area of concern is the cars are driving down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're confident that that's gonna hit that?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, cool. Okay, thanks for explaining.
Yeah, so there's gonna be gates in the front, and then there's a fence that goes all the way around, plus you have the dumpsters.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, page down, Dave. This was the turning movements for the emergency vehicles, so that didn't change. This changed slightly. I modified the handicap sign. Well, not the sign, the symbol and the handicap parking detail. It's to match the newer dynamic symbol. Yeah. And then I just added the meter pit to the water line just to reflect what the utilities department asked for. I think that was the only thing that we changed there. And then on the next sheet, we provided just a blow up, my scale printed vertically, but it's 1.5 inches. It's a pretty big scale cross section of plan view of the sediment trap as you go out into the grass swale. And then that cross section AA is down here. So, we added that with just some detail just to make that clear as to what's going on. So that was really the items that we changed on the plans and addressed. And I know that Jim McManus, I don't know if is he on, David?
I did not see.
If he's on, he does not have his full name to indicate that he's
Okay.
here. Or he's not using his full name to indicate that he's here.
Jim, if you are here, please join us. If not, we'll just submit. It's not already submitted.
I just emailed it to David and he said he was gonna print it out.
I did distribute copies of Mr. McManus's report to the commissioners present. The commissioners that are attending this meeting on Zoom, they have not received it yet. My intent is to email that report to them first thing tomorrow morning.
Okay. Yeah, I just received it today.
Understood.
And he did say he was gonna be on. He said he had to be traveling today, but he said he would be on Zoom. So,
Mr. Chairman, to keep the meeting moving in the instance that Mr. McManus is not with us at the moment, would it make sense if the commission doesn't have any questions of the applicant at this time to go forth with my comments?
Sure.
Okay. I'll try to be on the straight and narrow with what I have to give feedback. It's really not much. I am getting some feedback. James is that for iPhone?
Is that James McManus?
Hello, can anybody hear me? This is Jim McManus.
Even Mr. McManus, I
Hello,
realized that was you, sir.
Jim McManus is on Kristen iPhone.
Okay.
Jim, you're on.
Welcome.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
we
we
are
can.
getting
Can you
some
hear
echo,
us?
but we can't hear you.
Excellent, I guess.
Jim, do you have any comments on this application?
Can you hear me?
Your report yet?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Can you hear us?
He can't hear us. Jim, see if you can get to a better spot because we're getting you in and out.
Thing.
I don't think you can hear us. All right, we're gonna go with Dave's
Freaking
comment
car.
right now, and then we'll
It
revisit.
never works.
They just speak on the speaker. You don't have to put it up.
Hello,
Yes, we can hear you, Mr. McManus.
It's your iPhone anyway.
yeah, I don't know how it comes across. Hello,
Mr. McManus, can you hear us?
We saw you.
Remember that, Brett? That's the thing.
Jim, do you have your volume up?
I just emailed him.
All right, Jim, we're gonna move on to Dave and we'll come back to you. Why don't you go ahead with your comment?
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll try to keep them brief so that we can get back to the applicant as quickly as possible. So as Mr. Mizuko just indicated to you guys, you did receive revised site plan sheet set and response comments to Jim Mayo, town engineer, who is on tonight for you guys. So I will let him speak to the response comments that he received from Mr. Mizuko. There was another item that I think is worth noting, that there was a comment added to sheets 21024-R1SU, the site utilities and erosion sediment control plan, regarding sealing the existing sewer lateral. You as the commission did not receive anything from Mr. Villa indicating that that was addressed, but I can confirm with him that that is the case. If you are so inclined, unless you want to assume that that comment that Mr. Mizuko put on the plans has already done that. There is the wetlands assessment / impact analysis report from Mr. McManus, which I'm sure he will speak to when we get better service from him. This report just came in this afternoon. Like I had just mentioned, the commissioners that are online don't have the benefit of having this in front of them. And I would recommend you guys going through this report. If not at length tonight, perhaps should this public hearing be continued, you use that period to do that. Just so you guys can appreciate where I'm coming from. You all know how thorough my work review and staff comments were. I would like to pair up what is in this report to both of those sets of comments to make sure that everything I had in my comments is addressed in these, or at least is mentioned in these. With this report having come in today, I have not had the sufficient time I need to do that. Now with the housekeeping stuff out of the way, you guys conducted a site walk of this property on February 11th. For any questions that you otherwise could not have asked during that site walk, I would recommend you ask them during the continuation of this public hearing tonight during your commission comments. So in case you guys had any notes, or if there's anything you took down, or if there are any photographs that I took that you want me to reference, just let me know and we'll pop those up, because it's important to get all these questions out of the way before when you guys do ultimately decide to close that public hearing. And I think for intensive purposes, it's better to do that sooner rather than later. As Mr. Mizuko mentioned, the excavation activity that you guys saw is well outside of the regulated upland review area. Any enforcement actions that would be related to that, those are under the jurisdiction of planning and zoning. With their regulations, if it was within the regulated upland review area, it would be a little different, but it's not. So for all intents and purposes, it's not really relevant to you guys at the moment. One thing that you guys had mentioned at the previous meeting that I just want to perhaps give you some food for thought to focus in a little bit more. When you were discussing the stormwater management system and its treatment functions, it may be worthwhile for you guys to also discuss any applications of salts or sands to pave or concrete surfaces. In other words, like tonight with the snow and the weather event that we're going to be getting, there will be treatment that's perhaps applied in a hypothetical situation, right? So if that's going to be the case, you guys would want to know what the applicant's plans are for that, and if the management system in kind can address whatever they put down. Another thing for you guys to consider, that your review of this application is limited to what the applicant is proposing. I don't want to sound like a broken record about this, but the application that's before you is just a modification of a previous approval. So in other words, you guys have already granted an approval to the applicant to build and develop on this site. That approval cannot be touched. Once you have granted that, it is etched in stone, if you will. In other words,
But that approval was based on a different layout.
that's correct. That's
Correct.
correct.
So we base it on current drainage calculations and such, and not the old calculation.
No. So the fact that the standards have since changed since that application was approved, you cannot then go back and retroactively change the standards that you now apply to that previous approval.
No, but what I'm saying is, all right, let's say an applicant came in with an acre piece of property,
Right?
was gonna develop a 1/4 acre of that,
Okay,
and then came back and now is developing the full acre.
right,
That puts a different
right.
approval on it versus, and that's not the case here, I'm going extreme, but that puts a different approval on the previous approval as well.
No,
Different viewpoint, because it has different drainage calculations, different effects on the wetlands.
right. So you as a commissioner are in the unique circumstance of having the engineering stormwater standards change between when the previous application was approved
Okay.
and when this modification came before
Right.
you. If those standards had not changed, you guys would still be using your 25-year storm for your design standard
Right.
per the Public Works Department. That part would not change.
Right.
But because it's now a 100-year storm,
Mhm.
that Public Works is asking to be designed to, that's what prompted that element
Mhm.
to be changed
Right.
to this new set of standards.
Right.
But there isn't anything in your regs or anything in case law, to my understanding, that says that you can just go back and arbitrarily pick parts of a previous application and modify those as they are for that. And so in other words, that application as it is, it can't be touched.
I just want to make sure that we're clear that if, and I'm not talking about this application, but in general, if an applicant comes before us and we approve said application,
Right?
that doesn't give them carte blanche in 4 years to come back and say, okay, you gave me okay, and I
No.
can just go ahead and do it.
No, that's correct.
Okay.
They would have to stick to those plans that you approved.
Right,
Anytime they want to make a revision, they have to come back to you. But
Right.
those old plans.
Right.
For as long as an approval period is good for, they can submit a zoning permit, assuming
Right.
that it's only
Right.
your commission that needed a review at any time.
5 years.
Correct.
Right.
That's the standard period.
Right.
So I just wanted to clarify,
If they wanted to go back to the original plans.
they always have that.
Right, we wouldn't change the original, right,
They always have that.
Yep.
So I just wanted to make sure that was clear to you guys. I also just wanted to make sure that it was clear. There may be other questions that are out there, such as what is the zoning of this property? Whether or not the on-site water course is contaminated or not. Those are pertinent questions, but they are not relevant to your review of this application. So in other words, the zoning question, that would be more for the Planning and Zoning Commission's consideration. The contamination, if there was an enforcement issue for this property, it would be addressed as a separate matter, but it is not part of your review for this application.
But we have in the past requested testing for such items.
That's correct.
So it is under a preview to ask for that. If we feel, let's say there was a chemical, which there's not, let's say there was a chemical plant on a piece of property.
Right,
To test for that and address it accordingly.
absolutely.
Okay.
And that would be in what's called an environmental phase one.
Right,
You have, the applicant has eagerly given you those
Mhm.
when it is obvious and apparent that there
Right.
has been some kind of chemical or heavy industrial use of a
Right.
property where it is known, where it is common knowledge
Right.
that they were stored.
Right.
I can think of 2 applications off the top of my head where that was the case, but that is not the case here.
no, no,
So I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Mm-hmm.
The existing conditions, I imagine they are thoroughly described in this report.
Mm-hmm.
So it is worth you guys reading through that. If there is any mention of that, that's where you would find it in here.
Okay.
Anyway, and just as a quick aside, if there was any contaminants, your first go-tos, Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, otherwise known as DEEP, and the Environmental Protection Agency, otherwise known as EPA. That's state and federal respectively. A question for you. I know there's a lot, even though there haven't been many revisions to the application or the applicant has indicated that there hasn't been much in the way of revisions. Would it help you as a commission to have a full color set of the revised and previously approved site plans so that you can follow elements? In other words, in previous applications where you've had a lot that you've had to keep track of, I have taken the liberty of adding color to site plans for like the stormwater management system or for existing structures or what have you. I unfortunately didn't have the opportunity to have those prepared tonight, but if you guys are interested in having something like that as a compare and contrast to help you follow what's what, I could definitely do that for you. So just think on that while we go through the other items. The most important one, the default 35-day public hearing period for this application expires tonight. That began when you guys opened the public hearing on January 23rd. You guys have up to 65 days of time that you can use for extensions.
Okay.
With my recommendation to give me more time to review this report and compare it to my comments, you would need 28 days to get you to the next regular meeting on March 27th. So I just putting that out there, and then upon you guys closing the public hearing, whenever that happens, you guys would then have a 35-day period to render a decision, and then you would have 37 days of extension time remaining. I harp on the number of days specifically because you want to be exact with how many days you need.
Okay.
You don't want to just say to get us to the next meeting, because you want to be as specific as you can.
so you're saying we need 28 and that'll
You would
take us
need-
to,
The next meeting is in 20 days.
right?
That's correct.
But then we do not have to include the approval time because that's automatic after a public hearing closes.
Right, so let me clarify. You have 65 days to open a public.
Right,
That part's already gone.
done tonight.
Now we're in the public hearing phase. It began at the last meeting. The 35 days, the default period ends tonight.
Mhm.
You have 65 days of any time that you can use to extend between continuing the public hearing and
Okay.
rendering the decision for it.
Okay,
So whenever the public hearing closes, that decision clock begins.
can we ask for more days and just use less?
I would recommend you stick to the days you ask. So if the commission is interested in scheduling a special meeting, if you guys are so inclined to do that, I would make that part of your discussions before you request.
No,
an
I was just
extension.
thinking the next meeting's in 28 days. If I had just asked for 65 and use 28, then
No,
Okay.
like I'm saying, you want
Got
to be precise with the number of days you ask for. I know it's easy to do it that way, but it helps
Got
me keep track,
all right,
if anything else.
that's fine.
So, that's really all I have for you guys tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Anyone have any questions for David this time? Okay, all right, Jim, can you hear us now?
Yes, sir. All set.
Hi, you wanna, like, Dave was saying, we just got copies of your, report. Jim, you wanna go over your report or have any comments on it?
Yeah, no, I'll just go through it real quick. More so in terms of, at this point now, the applicant has now revised the plans. So I don't know if you want me to go through my whole report or just go through what I have still left outstanding. And it's more so that I haven't had time to finish my review. Because to be honest, the applicant has addressed pretty much everything except for and I have two things left. One thing to review and one thing one thing that's missing. So I just have one thing that's left for me to work out and just verify that I'm all set with, which has to do with the sediment trap sizing. I just haven't had time to go through that just yet. And then the other thing that I'd just like to point out, it's not one of my comments, but it was something that was brought up by the commission in the last meeting, talking about, or you all were requesting an oil water separator or some device or some mechanism like that. I did not see that on the revised set of plans. But aside from those two things, the rest of my comments have been addressed. So.
Okay. I know you're saying it's been addressed, so it's been addressed to your satisfactory, or are there any concern? Okay.
Yeah, to my satisfaction. And Mike went through a bunch of them already, at least that I heard. So, and I'm pretty happy with what he did. So again, it's just one thing I just have to finish up my review on. He could have met it. I'm not saying he didn't. I just haven't had time to dive into that one just yet. And then the oil water separator is the only other thing that's floating.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Jim McManus, are you on the call?
Yes, I am. Can everybody hear me?
We can hear you. Can you hear us? Obviously.
Yes, I can. Thank you.
All right. You want to review your report now?
Sure. Basically, it's very similar to what I talked about last time when we got together. Pretty much goes through the wetland, which is, we had one wetland in the eastern part of the site, which is mainly in maintained lawn, with a little bit of the southern part kind of forested with a shrubby component. And then of course we have the brook or the perennial water course. And then we have the forested area that's along the eastern property line. And then it goes off site, which is, and a lot of the understory is dominated by Phragmites or common reed. And in the area that's in lawn is disturbed as well. As we talked about last time, we do have a pipe that drains from Whitney and from Whitney Road. It drains directly into the resource. Did go a little bit into functions and values, which are pretty, there isn't much to speak of other than we do have a perennial water course. However, we're not impacting that with our proposal. We have no direct impacts, and I went to indirect impacts to the resource. And again, we look at things like erosion and sediment control. Mike put together a pretty robust erosion control plan, and the slopes are essentially gentle where we're doing our development, or they're going to be graded to be gentle. So we're not anticipating any impacts from erosion sediment controls. The majority, another thing we look at is vegetative loss, tree removal. The majority, if not all, of the site where the development is cleared already. So there'll be minimal tree removal within the upland review area of the resources. Another thing we look at is whether we're going to impact stream flow or hydrology. And the answer is no. We're not impacting the brook at all, the perennial water course. And Mike has designed his stormwater management that all of the water that we capture and treat is going back to where it goes before. It's going to go there again post-construction. And then finally, we look at water quality. Again, Mike did a robust treatment using underground galleries and detention basin or detention system to treat our stormwater prior to discharging to our wetlands. So in a nutshell, we're not anticipating any long-term or short-term adverse impacts to wetlands with the as proposed, the current proposal. That's an abbreviated view of the letter report that you received today or tonight. But we can certainly get into more depth if needed. But I'll just kind of give you a cursory view of what that report's all about. I'll take any questions if anybody has any.
I do, Jim, if I may, Commissioner.
No, please.
Jim, this is Nico Jordan, Commissioner, talking. Good evening. My question, I had a question about the soils on the map. The numbered NRCS web soil survey.
Yeah.
Document that we have, and I think it's in your report here. And essentially, I was wondering, I'm just going to read what I wrote down, and we'll try to piece this apart if we can. I'm concerned that the number on the NRCS web soil survey, they appear to not all match with the on-site soils described in the on-site soil investigation report dated 2/11/22, submitted by J&M Wetland Consulting Services. I don't know if I have that from, but it is soil types.
I can bring up that document. That one's in the book.
Oh, cool. Soil types 108 Saco Silt Loam, 308W Aquince, and 306 Udorthans Urban Land Complex were described, but the map shows some different number associated soil types in different places on the site than is described in the report. Example would be 229B that I noticed, Agawam Urban Land Complex. And basically I'm asking this for clarification because I was potentially concerned about like the possibility of a high water table. One of the definitions I think of, too many papers, of the, I think it was the Agawam Urban Land Complex, but I'm not sure it was one of these, is that, or maybe the Aquince, is that there's potentially high water table and that maybe they could, I was wondering about dewatering, if they have to, it was said that they don't expect to have to do that. But I was just concerned about it a little bit because the numbers weren't matching up. And if the soils aren't right, there could be a high water table potentially in that area close to the floodplain, perhaps.
Sure, I can answer that.
And then is there dewatering potential plan? Like, can you guys be ready to dewater if you have to?
Well, I'll answer the first one about the map. Remember, I add those NRCS web soil survey maps really as just a tool so you can get a sense of what the site looks like. Now we have to remember when NRCS, that's more of a large scale planning tool. It's really not an on-site description. Their mapping units are 2 to 3 acres in size. So for instance, a small, if say you had a site that had a an Agawam urban land complex. And then we had a little small isolated wetland in the middle of it. Well, the NRCS web soil survey is not going to indicate the little wetland inside the unit. That's just going to be incorporated in the major mapping unit. So that's number one. Number one is that they're large mapping scales. We do, well, I do when I do my delineations and then reevaluate the soils. It's just an on-site evaluation. So many times I'll have different symbols. For instance, this happens a lot. For instance, if the NRCS shows a well-drained, say a Paxton soil, which is a well-drained soil, but then my soil report only mentions the moderately well-drained equivalent, which would be a wood bridge. Again, that's very, that's not surprising. NRCS is just using a large mapping unit, mostly Paxton, but there are some Woodbridge or moderately well-drained inclusions. Our site happens to be included in the Woodbridge, for instance, on my example. So that's how that works. And as it relates to draining of the wetlands, we're not anticipating that for a number of reasons. Number one, where the development is in a better drain situation. And number two, the water that's going to be collected and then treated and let go is going back to exactly the same spot that it goes to today. And then number three, the wetland that is adjacent to the site is a very large swamp. And we're not going to have an impact upon that hydrology. So that in a kind of quick nutshell is kind of how that works out.
Okay, thank you. So
I can also comment on that with regard to the water table. The soil testing that we didn't show any indication that water table was going to be an issue. And you have to remember that we are lifting that site up quite a bit in the area of the new building. And the areas that we did especially on the western side of the site, you saw on the sidewalk, it's all sandy, gravelly material. So that's not going to be an issue. We don't need to de-water while we're digging foundations because they're only going to be a frost wall, and because we're raising the elevation up so much, we don't even really need to dig down that much to do that.
what distances are we talking? Do you remember offhand? Like depths?
Well, you only need 42 inches below grade for your frost protection.
So you're not digging below 42 or?
How much you're raising the property, the building?
I think it was 2.5 or 2.5 feet from the pad that's there now.
So you're only going down like 1.5 feet.
That's it, yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, unless there's the area that on the eastern side, okay,
Yep.
that was filled.
Mhm.
So if you dig down and you're hitting filled soils, you generally want to get through that filled material to get a solid foundation.
I was worried that one of my concerns I think that I had was that like the man altered soils, that they're probably well draining, you know, to a certain extent maybe, but they're manipulated, right? So is one of these other less well draining or high water table soils, like subsoils, like potentially hiding underneath that
It
disturbed
could be,
soil?
but
maybe?
because they filled so much, we're up above it.
Cool, okay, because I was imagining you guys digging down and being like
Yeah,
there's a different soil type under this.
Yeah, and there-
and alter.
I'm sure there is, especially on the eastern side of the building, the existing building, where that was filled, probably, and you see it was graded off of it and it sloped right down to.
But you know exactly where the water table is, or like, did you?
Yeah, I did.
Did you test that at the?
I did
building
test,
site?
we did a test hole almost at the end of the easterly end of that leg of the detention system. And it showed that it was filled.
Okay.
Right.
If it does help, all the test pits that were done on site were anywhere from 5 to 6 feet deep with no groundwater discovered.
Thank you. That is totally.
That makes a big difference.
Thanks, James.
You're already at least 5 feet higher than
Yeah,
the lowest part of the property anyway.
yeah, where it drops off.
Oh, right now.
Yeah, that's gotta be at least 5 feet.
Yeah.
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 Okay. Yep. So generally, I think the water table is a little lower than that.
Well, and one other thing I forgot to mention I did revise was the trees, the Norway maples, I changed to sugar maples.
Cool, thanks.
All right. Forgot to mention that.
Okay,
Mr. Chair, could I ask Mr. McManus to just clarify one point?
yeah, please.
Jim, this is Ken Slater. You were talking about the difference between the scaling of the soil map versus your on-site work. Isn't it true that the mapping that was at a larger scale, it's not just at a larger scale, but they might not necessarily have actually done an specific on-site analysis like you did on the site? Is that correct?
That is correct. A lot of the NRCS review is done on tabletop. They look at aerial photographs. They look at old data that they had mapped years ago. And yes, they do walk much of the county that they're mapping, but you cannot say that they've been on every site, at least not to the degree that I was, which was, on this site only and reviewed all of the site. They don't do that. That is correct.
And Jim, at the first portion of the hearing, I wasn't here. Did you present a resume or give a very brief overview of your credentials to doing the wetlands analysis?
I didn't tonight. I've been in front of these folks for quite some time, but I can give a brief little synopsis of who I am.
Just for the record, Jim, if you don't
I have a
mind.
master's. Sure. I have a master's degree from UConn in plant and soil science. I've been working on soil and natural resource related projects now for over 30 years, from Maine to Florida and as far west as Minnesota. I'm on the New England Hydric Soil Technical Committee, which is a committee who studies soils to figure out better ways to identify wetlands. So, like, for instance, when I went out and flagged these wetlands, we're coming up with better indicators to help people in the field like myself flag their wetlands more precisely. So I'm on that committee or that group. And yeah, I mean, that's about it. Just been around and seen a lot. Done over 4,000 delineations over the last 30 years. So.
And based on that experience, Jim, do you believe it's reasonably likely that this project will result in any adverse impact to a wetlands?
That is correct. As proposed, we will have no adverse impacts to the regulated resources.
Thank you. That's all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Okay. While we still have them, anyone has any questions for Mrs. McManus from the commission?
Nothing new.
Danielle, do you have a question? Go ahead.
So relating to something that Dave had mentioned earlier in the meeting, I'm curious to know how any treatment for snow and ice is going to be handled in the detention systems that you have there. Because it's my understanding that those don't deal with dissolved solids. Those are strictly to remove suspended materials in the water, if I have that correct. Do I have that correct?
Not 100%, because the water quality volume means that there'll be no discharge for basically up to the 2-year storm event. So that stuff will get absorbed into the ground before any discharge. Now, if the storm exceeds that, but many of the storms, the smaller storms, you're not going to see any discharge. You're going to be receiving full treatment on any of that runoff. So.
But what is that treatment? It looks like mechanical filtration, where it's going to be removing large suspended particulates.
Well, if it's being infiltrated into the ground, that's treatment.
So you're basically saying it's going to gate basically go into chambers and then from there get absorbed into the ground.
Right, so you have the chamber, you have basically have 6
Gravel.
inches of stone
Yeah.
underneath the chamber and a foot of stone on the sides.
Right.
And then you have so you have 6 inches, the stone, then your unit, and then our outlet pipe is set. I think it's about 1.5 feet higher than the bottom of the galleries.
Right.
So any of that first flush gets in there
Right.
and it sits there, and then, again, if it's not a major storm, it'll just dissipate into the ground.
Right. So I think, and Danielle, not to put words in your mouth, you're asking if there's anything physically taking it out before it gets absorbed into the ground. Is that correct?
Well,
Yeah, more or less. I mean, it's going into the ground, but the ground is not isolated from the wetlands area either. So at a certain point, you reach saturation, it has to go somewhere.
right, correct. The water is gonna go somewhere. It's gonna get down into the ground. It's either gonna go laterally or it's gonna keep, depending on the soils, it'll keep going down. But
Well, laterally would lead it into the wetlands, which would mean that there would be exposure from whatever is being used on the impervious substrate. Sorry, late night. The pavement.
But you're getting a treatment, and it's no different than a septic system. When you have this effluent from a septic system, it travels through
But the
a
difference,
section of the ground, of the soil, and it cleans itself. After a while, it's clean.
but the different, and I don't have a septic system, so the difference, and I wasn't gonna get into the oil separator yet, but the difference with the septic system is you have it pumped out.
Yeah.
Have this
No.
pumped out.
No, the
The solids
septic,
don't get pumped out of a septic system?
yeah, certain solids don't, certain solids are very.
Right.
I mean, I have one, I only do it
Okay.
every 2 years.
Right.
In the meanwhile, all the wastewater, it actually goes into the earth, and the earth is what the distance it travels. That's why there's a separating distance under the public health code of how close septic systems can be to one another, because
Right.
there's a certain distance that the water gets treated while it travels through the soil. So it actually does
Right.
get treated.
Or a curtain drain or an under drain,
So
the distance
my
is-
point then, and then, yeah, I don't mean to be walking on you, so please
Good.
come up. So let's just say, take, I don't know, 5 gallons of oil. Okay, pour it down this whole drainage system. And I'm going extreme here, obviously. That oil's gonna go into the galleys. The water's gonna sink in, the oil's gonna stay on the rock. Okay, next storm comes, it comes up, goes down, up and down. You get a 200-year storm or whatever it is, you're gonna have a flush. That oil's coming up and now flushing out. Correct?
Yeah.
And that's what I was wondering. Okay,
And a septic system isn't what I'm talking about, because a septic system presumably is biological materials that actually would work its way through a wetlands eventually. I mean, talking about, how it depends on how much, but that's not what we're talking about.
I
I'm
think it's
talking
fair to be
about,
concerned about, sorry, Danielle.
Yeah, this was my top concern.
It's good to be concerned about that too, though, when you agree that depending on the usage of the septic system and
yeah,
what's going.
but it isn't a septic system. So I want to be clear that that's not what we're talking about, because because a wetland is designed to deal with biological waste. That's what a wetland is. So that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about adding de-icing and salt onto the roadways there. All of that pavement that's being laid is going in, and that has to eventually go somewhere. So I hear what you say, that the water is going to go down in and that the salt will sit. But just like what Pat was saying, the salt will sit, the de-icers will sit, the oil will sit, and it has to go somewhere. It's going to fill that void at some point. And if we do get a 200-year storm, it is going to wash out. That's what I'm saying. When you say treating, you're not treating unless you are getting that out of that system. And I don't hear that that's happening.
so
Well, when you talk about specifically with oil is lighter than water, so it will attach and,
Yep.
reflow.
Right. And
So-
salt is not.
Salt won't, but salt, like, again, it'll get treated in the water quality volume because it'll stay in the system and get into the ground.
So why, and I know we've used this in past applications with parking lots less than this, why not use an oil? I call it vortex. I I'm not in the trade, I don't know.
Oil water.
Well, yeah.
Oil,
it
water
has a-
separate,
it
why
has
not
a-
use one in
It
this?
has like a baffle. It really
Okay.
just boils down
Right.
to a baffle. And I told you, we could put it, if you
Okay.
feel that strongly, we could put a
Yep.
baffle on the outlet pipe to shield the potential for any oils. But I don't see where, yeah, you could have a mishap, but it's not gonna be
Could-
5 gallons of oil. I just don't see the need for it. It's not like you have a retail establishment or a drive-through where people are pulling in, their cars are running, they're sitting there, they're waiting in line, or they, go to a store, they run in for 15 minutes, they come back out, like a CVS, something like that. That's where you generally see a lot of, buildup of oil.
But you have the
sitting-
car sitting there, and like I
If
said,
the car's not,
we've done this consistently in
Mhm.
other parking lots less than this size, so. Why wouldn't we here? With
well,
cars sitting
we
there, I
had the
mean,
previous application, and it didn't come up at all. And this is not much different. I think we have one extra parking space.
okay,
We were missing a lot of information, I think, when we made,
We're
a
missing,
lot more information was coming.
So-
We've had more studies done, we've had more documents
saying
presented.
it didn't come up at all.
Can I
So
get
you
back
say-
to what I still don't feel like my question was really answered. You keep saying it's being treated, but it's not being treated. It's not being removed. Can you clarify what you mean by treating? And I'm not talking about oils. That's Pat's question. It's fine. I'm interested to hear that too. But I'm talking about suspended particulates like you would be using in winter storm on all of that pavement.
What,
The word you keep using is it's being treated, and I don't understand what you mean when you say that, because it doesn't seem to me
Well-
like it's being
well, if you're
treated at
using,
all.
if you're using salt or
Yep.
calcium chloride or some other treatment and sand, the sand, you have the catch basins with sumps, so you'll pick up the heavy particulate. The smaller stuff, if it gets into the system, and again, if it's in the winter time, you generally don't get huge rainstorms in the winter time. Most
No,
of the
you're
time,
getting
it's not.
snow.
Yeah, but you're not getting, the snow will melt off very, very slowly. And then it's gonna get into the system. It's not even gonna be discharged out because it's gonna be infiltrated into the ground. That's treatment. That's a primary
So-
treatment.
Danielle, if it helps, I think what he's saying, the treatment is basically,
That you're saturating the soil with these
you're
particulates.
basically
instead
the
of putting it-
stone and the soil, and it's being treated before it comes to the outlet pipe to daylight, so to speak.
Correct.
So it basically the soil that's being used as filtration for it. Would that
Which is
be?
again, another form of mechanical filtration. But what I'm gonna say is that it doesn't seem to me like that's a long-term solution to the problem, because the soil can become saturated with that as well, and it still has to go somewhere.
That's not true. That is not 100% true. Depending on what kinds of de-icers you use on your, this is Jim McManus, by the way, on your surfaces. Sodium, if you use sodium, sodium's going through the system. There isn't a single system out there that stops sodium. It's going through your system. As we have a drainage pipe that discharges directly to the perennial water course at this time, does not treat the sodium. If
Thank
you use
you.
a calcium chloride, the calcium will be adhered to the soil particles if not used by other things prior to getting to the underground detention facility.
When you say
So
use by
you're not
other things,
stop,
are you saying that
you're
there's a
not gonna-
biological process that's breaking that down?
the calcium is used, it adheres to the soil. The soil is a negative ion and calcium is a positive ion. It adheres to the soil.
But can it
It's
not
a
reach
chemical,
saturation?
it's a chemical reaction. Sure it can, but then it would adhere again. I mean, phosphorus, unless it's eroded, never moves, ever. That's why on farms, control of erosion off of agricultural fields is so important, because the phosphorus, if it erodes into a water course, now your phosphorus is mobile. And that's where you get algae blooms and all that other stuff. But phosphorus in general never moves, ever. Stays right where it is. To it's being used by a plant or just sits there and just waits.
And that's why
Calcium
fertilizers are so debilitating to water courses, over fertilization.
Pardon me?
And that's why over fertilization is such a detrimental impact on these systems.
That can be a detrimental impact, but it's not the only reason. But yes.
Okay, so what you're saying is that salt isn't going to impact the water course here if it reaches there?
It's reaching there all over the place. The
Yep.
Simbog River has a lot of salt, and this one site is not going to throw it over the edge.
That's not a
Salt
reason.
is not, it runs through the system. The salt runs through the system. And you're having a drainage pipe, a 15-inch drainage pipe discharging whatever it feels like right now into the Simbog River.
That's
We are
bad.
treating that's not good. We are treating our system
It's bad. It should be
with
rented.
the best management practices.
No.
And in my opinion, there will be no detrimental adverse impacts to the regulated resources because we've done our due diligence and we figured out what's going to work.
So,
Are you basing that on the volume of water that already exists in the wetlands versus the volume of water that you're going to be discharging?
I'm basing knowing of soil science and then talking with the engineer.
so Jim, just to be clear, there's nothing developed, my understanding, and you obviously know better, there's nothing developed, produced right now that will filter out the salt before it goes to wetland in any application, correct?
Well, yes, it's very, very challenging to stop salt from moving through the system. It's just the way the molecule is built. It's just very challenging to do that.
Okay.
And that includes above ground detention facilities.
All right, but there is devices out there for the separation of oil and water, and oil-like substances.
Yes, there's various things, hooded catch basins, high dynamic separators, and I'm sure Mike can even mention even other models or other types of
Mention the
best management practices.
All it is a baffle. It's a baffle that when the water level rises, it shields it from being outletted directly. So the lower water has to go up and then out. So
Can you include that in the plan for James to look at?
Yeah.
The Mayo?
Yeah.
Okay. Again, I'm not an engineer, so
yeah, it's
I would like to get his input on. Okay. Danielle, anything else?
I think that answered my question. Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you. All right,
Thank you.
I'm gonna open up to the public now. If anyone has any comments, questions that they'd like to discuss on this application, please address it to the chair or to the commission, and then we'll ask the applicant to answer. Please, and just state your name and address, please.
Allison St. Germain, 14 Elgin Ave.
Okay.
And I'm gonna give you, and I emailed it to, after the February 14th
Okay.
meeting. And it was to planning and zoning and to inland wetlands. And thank you, because the attorney for the applicant has answered a couple of the questions in there.
Okay.
But let me read the section that pertains to your work. And of course, I had gone on the site walk with you all, so was able to witness some of what you witnessed. And then I have gone into the office and talked to David to get some more information because I have some new questions tonight. But the original application, which P&Z denied, but you all approved, lists the total land as 1.7 acres. However, the tax assessor listed at 1.56. So this new application doesn't list the lot size. If I missed that,
Okay.
Please correct me. And so the size of the lot obviously determines the number of units that they can end up building. But of that total lot size, how much of it is in the floodplain? And so, again, thank you. Mr. McManus is the consulting services who addressed the soil survey, and he did do the delineation. And so that answers that question. But another question that came up from going on the walkthrough, because when you were setting that meeting up at the last meeting here, I believe that the applicant or representation from the applicant said that they needed to put the flags back out or the markings back out. So I do have a very specific question of, did the engineer do that? What measurements did they use? Did Mr. McManus go back out on site and do that? Because obviously the size of that lot being determined by what the size of that floodplain is and who marked that. And were those just cones that were moved or flags that were put in and then moved and then put in again? So another question that came up was the impact on wildlife habitats in the area. And I get it, it looks like a lawn, but it borders obviously larger wetlands. And so there are animals. We have seen them. We do see them in our neighborhood. So I just wonder if that's not included in the application. So from then, a couple things is you really study the maps, and you have them all, but I typed this out and looked at that. So the original application and this current application included a February 8th, 2021 survey map. So it was done by New England Land Surveying. And my question is, there's a line on the map, and I don't know if obviously you can't see my little thing here, but maybe David can pull it up. But this is the question that I came in to ask at the office, and he said to ask that of the applicant. So the original survey had the flood line or the regulated area, it seems, kind of go off to the west. And so in the current application and the previous one that you submit, they submitted, the engineering survey has it seemingly go, so that's the one that was from New England Land Survey.
Okay.
So is that the floodplain line? So that's my question to the applicant. Is that the regulated area line? What is that? Because then when you come to the current and previous application of the existing building, the line wiggles off to the right. And then how it impacts the current application in front of you is there is a corner of the building and a big chunk of the parking lot that's now in the regulated area. So it is a larger project than what you approved last time. And now some of it's in the regulated area. So that's the site survey map. I have this, I can give this to you, and I can also email it to David later on. But those were my questions that
Thank
came
you.
up from the site.
Thank you very much.
Look at that document, Mr. Chairman.
Do I have to sign it?
Yeah, please do.
Yes,
I'll give you, okay,
and I can email it to you too.
thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else wishing to speak? Please.
Thank you. Here you go, Pat.
Great, thank you.
I'm Nancy Sudik, 2 Ridgedale Road. So I just have a few comments from the point of view of a layperson that I truly am. And so I attended the walk around 17 Whitney Road, and I am opposed to this commission giving its approval for a large apartment complex, 42 units, plus 60 parking spaces. This property has only 1.7 acres, and I'm not even sure it has that much. And that will be fully consumed by a 42-unit apartment complex plus 60 parking places, all to be built over an impervious surface and in close proximity to fragile wetlands, which are on the edge of the property. As has been demonstrated time and time again, having nothing to do with this project. Despite everyone's best intentions, accidents happen all the time. There are already enough natural disasters without chancing an avoidable man-made disaster that could result in the damage and destruction of these particular wetlands. Keep in mind, the wetlands are located only a stone's throw from where the residents of the development will live and recreate. 42 units will attract a minimum of 42 occupants. More likely, there will be at least double that number of occupants. Please deny this project based on the proximity of too many people and too many cars, all too close to fragile wetlands and to the animals that make their home in those wetlands. This project is neither healthy nor safe, not for the wetlands, not for the animals who live in the wetlands, and ultimately not for the human animals whose lives are intertwined with and dependent upon a healthy ecosystem. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in regard to this application? Okay,
I have another, sorry.
please.
Jeff Booklemba, 3 Summit Lane. I guess my question is, just in general, is the parking the same as the number of parking spaces the same as it was for the last proposal that you approved?
We wouldn't be allowed to answer that. That's a.
Well, that's addressed to Mike or David or something. And I guess my other question is, did any of the rules change from the last approval to this one as far as the regulations? Because my only thought is it's the same parking lot, then I'm just confused why there's new additional rules this time versus last time. Or
Can you
again, I
approach
don't
the
know.
dais if you're gonna ask your questions? I'm sorry, just to make sure it's heard on the.
Yeah, sure. I guess my question is, has the parking lot changed in size between the last one and this plan? And also, are any like state regulations have changed since the last one that was approved versus this one? Because I'm just curious if it's the same parking lot, is there some sort of new filtration system that's required this time versus last time? I just don't understand the process. Anyway, that's my only question. Thanks.
All right, thank you. All right, you want to answer some of these questions now?
No, Mike
Yeah,
answered them last
sure.
time, but
I would also reach out to see if there's anyone
yeah.
on Zoom that has.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I always forget Zoom. Is there anyone on Zoom wishing to speak in regard to this application? Okay. Not hearing anyone?
Not seeing any raised hands either, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Mike,
Yes. So with regard to the questions about the lot size, I don't know where the 1.56 acre or five acres that Ms. St. Germain was talking about, but the survey map, the A2 survey map, which is certified by New England Land Surveying, is 765 acres. So we've always been saying it's 1.77 acres. And I can't answer the question without figuring out how much of the land is below the floodplain, but I do want to, I can just go up to the map and just kind of. Yeah, 1.765. So the question with regard to this was the original flood line that was taken off of the flood maps. However, when you look at the actual flood, the listed flood elevations on the flood map, it's elevation 391. And if you look at this line here, which is the new flood line, which they went and they got a letter of map revision or map amendment with FEMA to say that this is really the true floodplain based on elevation, because that's what you really should be going on. A lot of times these lines there's not a lot of rhyme or reason in terms of, does it follow the contour in terms, because water is going to go down, but it's going to be spread evenly across as it's going down through a it's water course. And so that's why the flood elevation 391 was mapped on the field. It was field surveyed in terms of elevation, and they prepared the map to get that revision done with FEMA. So
I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt Mr. Mizuko's response comments. I think it's just worth a point of clarification. That is showing as 361, Mr. Mizuko.
361.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that was the correct number for that. And I
Yes.
think it's worth for the record, what is the source of that original flood map? Like what information do they use to determine that?
So if you go to the FEMA website,
Mhm,
you can go in and punch in an address,
mhm.
and it'll take you to their flood mapping.
Okay,
And so it'll list the 100-year flood line. If it's got a floodway, it'll show the floodway. If it has listed flood elevations,
right.
it'll show that, because a lot of floodplains don't have elevations, but some of them do. In this case here, there is a listed flood elevation. And so that's what we go by when they have the elevations.
Okay, I think the point I'm trying to clarify for the commission's benefit, the original approximate flood zone boundary was based on a FEMA map that perhaps did not have its information as recently sourced on the ground as the letter of map amendment. Is that correct to say that?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a different elevation. And again, I don't know how, when they created these lines.
Mike, is it similar to when you have a town's wetlands map before individual mapping happens? There's a map and it shows where wetlands are. But the
Yes.
wetlands require an applicant to actually go in, determine where they really are. And once they've done that, that really defines where the
Well,
wetlands are.
Just
Whereas
a
in this
clarification, it's not wetlands, it's floodplains.
No, no.
So
No, but
we're
he
saying-
uses analogy.
I'm drawing an analogy.
Yeah,
Your
and
town-
it's similar to that. It's medium intensity. This is a high intensity where you're doing it in the field with correct elevations based on the datum that they're, you know, I think it's the 88 datum that they're
So
working.
it wasn't redrawn by you or your survey, it was redrawn by. the
in.
government.
No, he merely just went out and
Yes.
field topo the 391.
Yep.
Or the 361 contour. And that's how they established that line and went to FEMA to get the map revised.
And another point of clarification, again, for the commission's benefit, Mr. Mizuko, a floodplain elevation and the bound for such is completely different from the limit of your regulated upland review area.
Oh, yes, yeah, that's totally different from
Okay,
wetlands regulated areas, no correlation, nothing.
so neither of those two lines that we're discussing have anything to do with that upland review area.
No,
Okay, I just wanted to have that there
Yeah.
for the record.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mizuko.
Who marked out the flagging for this?
The applicant measured off, scaled off the building to reset the lines.
So it's the applicant.
Yeah, the applicant did it. I mean, it was, was it within 2 inches or an inch? No, but it was within probably 6 or 8 inches.
It gave a visual reference.
Yeah. What else was there? Well, the question about the parking, the difference, I think it was the difference of 1 parking space between the previous application and this one. And then the question also was, did the rules change? I think he said state rules, but I think it wasn't a state rule, it was a town rule that made us go to a 100-year design.
Right.
So, again, from my personal perspective, my personal professional perspective is that this application, the building's a little bit bigger,
Mhm.
but we did move a little bit of the parking lot back. We also have a 100-year storm design year for the stormwater management system. So it's a much better plan in terms of those reasons. So, but I think that was it, unless there was something else I missed.
No, that's everything I have.
Okay.
Impact on wildlife.
Yeah, I mean, that's.
Well, I can speak at that in one point, which is.
If you could just identify yourself.
Oh, I'm
again,
sorry,
this
Ken
person.
Slater.
Thank you.
There's actually this is a legal issue because I dealt with it in a town in northeastern Connecticut. Originally, there's a case called Avalon Bay where there was an impact, where there was an actual impact on species. These were obligate species in a vernal pool. And it went to this, there was no question in the record that the species were actually going to be that used vernal pools to reproduce, and that based on the design of the particular plan, they were actually going to be, the species themselves were going to be harmed. And the local wetland commission denied it. It went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said the Wetlands Act is designed to protect the wetlands themselves, not these species that happen to use it, and overturned it. And what the legislature did is found a balance. And the legislature said that in some instances, the species are actually become wetlands for you to protect. But the only time that happens is if an applicant is proposing to do an actual physical impact, direct physical impact in a wetland, in which case the species become a regulated resource. So in this case, they're not. Although that said, we appreciated what was said earlier about lights over that might affect the species. So, and I think Mike did a nice job of explaining why the dumpster, et cetera, would not result in light impacts over there. But from a regulatory standpoint, in this particular case, the commission doesn't have jurisdiction over species, although we would have taken that into account in terms of our design, just to be sympathetic to it.
All right. Thank you. I'll just ask the public one more time. Is there any questions or comments from the public? And state your name again, sorry.
Allison, same for me, 14 Elgin Ave. I just want to make a note because you didn't pull up the map of the second, on my second page, that the new project definitely, it says a line, regulated area, and the new project, part of the building, and a big chunk of that parking lot was in that regulated area. And so looking in the inland wetlands regulations that are online, then there are considerations that you all can take into account because of the regulated area. And so clearly I saw that line there and it's on those maps. So I
Dave,
just want to
can
make
you
a
pull it
note that was. in the
Yes, I
regulations.
can.
I try and remember, I thought the corner was like 10 feet,
It's just hitting, it's just hitting the corner of the building.
right, I
Yeah,
don't know. what's-
but I think if you look at, if you overlay, and I'm in the plan I brought out, when you overlay the existing building compared to the new building, the existing building is actually further into the regulated area, so we're actually making it better.
Doesn't hurt to look, yeah.
The regulated area is not the wetlands or the water, the regulated area includes the buffer distance from, or
Just 100 feet. yeah.
100
Yeah,
feet
100
from
feet.
it. So that's an important distinction.
Mr. Chairman, so the site plan sheet that is up at the moment is the
Oh, there you
existing
go.
conditions.
Perfect.
Mr. Mizuko, this is the regulated area line here.
This is the regular, yes, correct. So you
That's
can
the
see,
existing building now.
correct. So if you
Nothing.
see, if you go to our site development plan, Dave, you can see that our building now is only here.
Right,
So
but
we're-
you do have, just for clarification, with that other
Well,
piece.
Well, yeah, I mean, this was the recreation area. It
Right.
just got a little smaller because the building got.
No,
bigger.
I understand.
But
I just
here,
want clear-
but we were actually a little bit closer to the floodplain on the previous application. So we pulled this, it wasn't a lot, but I'm just saying, we came further away.
Mhm.
Yeah.
No, and you do have items in the 100-foot.
Oh, no question. That's why we're here.
No, absolutely,
Yeah,
exactly.
So, Mr. Chairman, I think this may go back to a comment that I had made earlier, where for your benefit, it may make sense to have a direct compare and contrast for what the commission previously approved in terms of a new proposed building, and compare that to what is currently before the commission. So you can see location wise, what has changed and where.
Okay.
And I could add color to, so like. if
That was
you-
not my thing to discuss, yes.
Yes.
Okay,
So if that is something of interest to you guys, I can prepare that for
well,
you.
you brought it up now, so yes, I would
Yes.
be in favor of that.
Okay,
Yes.
Okay, if you could prepare that.
not a problem.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from anyone from Zoom wishing to discuss this application? Okay, I just have a couple of questions, if you don't mind. Can you plant a tree in the floodplain? So my concern is however many apartments are gonna be there, you may have kids or whatever going into the wetlands, all that. We have, I call them medallions, is that what they're called?
Medallions, yes.
Medallions that we'd like to place before the wetland, basically say, hey, the wetlands don't go play here, and they do anyway, but at least they're there. But I mean, I could just picture a lot of kids playing in that floodplain area. It's a great place, you know? I don't want to put a 4x4 there.
No.
Is there a way is there somewhere we could fix these? I'm trying, there's trees there. Can we,
There are a few trees right along the wetlands.
can
line.
would you be okay with placing, they're like, what, 4-inch round?
Yeah, so
On trees, on a couple of the trees there, signifying it's wetlands.
just to clarify, the medallions, the main intent is to deter people from altering the grounds
Right.
within a regulated upland review area without coming before you guys. And so the intent of the medallion is to say, hey, this is an area that it's protected,
Right.
we're trying to
Right.
minimize any impacts here. So if you want to do anything here, see the people that are on the medallion.
Right.
It's not to deter kids from accessing the water course, because you always want to encourage passive recreation.
Okay,
So I just,
then I misspoke.
yeah, I just
I know if I
wanted-
was a kid, I would be changing it, so.
Can I make a comment on the medallions as well?
Yes,
please.
absolutely.
I was thinking about it earlier today, that they seem more useful in a situation of high density residential development.
Such as this.
Such as this, I think. because
Okay,
it's- Yeah, there's more people and there's more traffic and it's more of a transient community also in the way that the rental setup is. So as opposed to like a single family home, right, where you have you're living there, you have a family, and it's like your backyard. I feel like we digress, but it's less important to have those there as opposed to, that's just my opinion, whatever, I was thinking about that.
So
As
what,
opposed to with many people, that it's a good reminder, they serve as just a nice reminder.
sure,
of, oh,
so,
look, there's a sensitive habitat.
so are you asking that the applicant provide locations for medallions on the plan, or would you want to discuss that?
Just a note on there that medallions will be added to
Existing trees.
existing
that-
trees. It doesn't have to
Existing
be
trees.
every
I don't
5
want,
feet,
yeah, I don't
just-
want to worry about.
Doesn't
I,
have to be-
I'm in agreement with Nico, Kevin, Commissioner. It's not the fact that we want to reduce recreation, but when you have a high volume of people and foot traffic, it could just serve as an optical awareness of just not to abuse the property in which you're on.
Sure.
It's the same concept as a don't litter sign or a don't like, it's conceptually speaking, it's an easy warning to know that you're embarking on a pathway to someplace that's a special area that should be cared for more so than not, and especially with children. And children are the good events. If these people do have kids that are living in there, I adventured when I was a kid too, but you're also more likely to be precautious when you see a sign. Not that you won't, you're always gonna have people that don't, but it has no negative impacts, and it's an easy ask, and it can, there's only benefit to asking it as
Yeah.
opposed to,
And I
Just put a
think,
note
as
on
opposed to
that.
disruption.
yeah, I believe the phrasing on those medallions, just to be quick about it, environmentally sensitive area.
Yeah, exactly. So that would, yeah, just, it's awareness if anything.
Understood.
Okay, so,
So,
go ahead.
so where are we at, Mr. Chairman? Do you want to request an extension
Not
from?
yet.
Oh.
I'm getting there.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Salt and sand.
Oh, you still have questions.
Yep, sorry, salt and sand. And Dave, I may need your help here.
Okay,
Can we regulate the type of material used in salting or de-icing to be a bio-friendly agent? If there is such a thing?
well, I would say,
I know in the past we've done,
well,
I don't
from
know
a,
how you police it, but
right, so from a parallel perspective, when you're talking about fertilizers, when you're talking about seeding a property.
Right.
You guys have requested conditions of approval where the applicant uses fertilizers. They apply them to the rate that they're required
right,
at most,
right.
not to exceed that. And B, that they use fertilizers that are environmentally friendly, if you will. So they're not artificial chemicals or what have you.
Right.
They're your phosphorus, nitrogen, and whatever sulfur, I believe. I think those are the three components for fertilizer, and then there's nothing really else in the way of additives to that. I don't see why you could not craft a condition for that in the ways of road salts to have them be environmentally friendly. I don't know what that would constitute. Because I'm not as familiar with chlorides or road salts as the applicant is, but I think it's worth having that discussion.
Mike, is that something you could look into, or should Jim?
We can look into it. Yeah, I'll look into it. I'll talk to Jim McManus.
Okay, appreciate it.
Hopefully we can come up with,
Okay.
solution.
All right, does anyone else have any questions at this time for the applicant? Any commission?
Just one, so to speak to your point of the baffles for the oil water separator,
Yep.
you can include that. in the
Yeah, I
notes.
just
Okay,
make sure I put an arrow next to it so I don't miss it.
thank you. I
That's the only
appreciate
thing I wanted to piggyback on. as
Okay.
well, so.
Nico,
You do, but I'm having trouble formulating them at the moment.
just open your mouth and spit it out. Dave will make sure it gets filtered. The way it
I'll
has
do
to.
my best.
Housekeeping question, or what's our time frame on like gathering materials and asking questions? Is this like the last
Right.
opportunity?
We're
No.
So I guess we're
So the
going.
time
I
to
feel like
ask
there's so
questions
much information.
and have dialogue with the applicant is during your public hearing. Once you have determined that you have all the information you need, and the public hearing is closed, and that's it. You don't get a chance to ask the applicant any more questions. Your discovery is done. You are limited to the information that you have, and the discussion that you have with myself and amongst yourselves as the commission.
Can we continue this public hearing?
Yeah, that was gonna be my
Something.
last question, because I figured everyone would be asking questions.
You have our
So-
consent for the 28 days. You've asked for some additional information to be provided to the public, and you need an opportunity.
David
So-
needs some time to review items that he got today.
Yeah.
so.
So I think the
Exactly.
general consensus is
It's
from the
the process.
commission, we are asking for 28 days.
That's correct.
And Mike, you need to supply a letter stating that, is that correct? Or somebody,
I can go one.
sorry.
Yeah, just, because I don't know what the weather will do for tomorrow, so you can just email that over to me. Not a problem.
One of us will take care of that.
Very good.
The one other thing while I have the floor, I guess, is that, I think my general concern is pollution, dissolved solids in the water. That's what we've been talking about since last meeting, that we couldn't put our fingers on, find the language for. We were talking about suspended solids, total dissolved solids, pollutants, potential for pollution going into the Stowe River, which is an impaired Connecticut DEP and impaired water value, right, water course. And yeah, and how to, like, if there's any more potential low impact development techniques that can help, or other options, like we were talking about some tonight, to manage the salt, to manage the oil, maybe. And there's all sorts of other stuff that could, residential setting, parking areas get dumped and spilled on the ground that are dissolved. So that's it. I guess that's my
Okay.
question.
So I don't think we talked, you're gonna look at the baffle or how that works. But as far as dissolved substance, there's really nothing for this application out there device that would do something like that. Right now,
The best thing that you can do
the ground.
is infiltration.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
I think it's out of our jurisdiction at that point, anyways, it's filtering.
All right, let's go on Zoom. Danielle, do you have any questions, comments? Okay, Laura?
No.
Okay. I think that's all the committee members on the thing. So if there are no more questions from the commission members at this time, I will extend the public hearing till the
Continue.
continue the public hearing to next meeting. I thought I had it.
And that will be on,
That's it, 28 days?
that will be on March 27th.
March
And the
27th.
meeting will be held here and on Zoom, starting at 7 o'clock.
Starting at 7 o'clock. Okay,
Okay,
thank
very
you.
good.
Thank you.
Okay. Is the committee still okay to continue on, or need a break? Okay,
Fine.
so next on the agenda, we have Shelley Road.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you very
Have a
much.
great night.
Thank you very
You
much.
too.
Thank you guys for coming.
James, I believe the Shelley takes place on.
Thank you.
James, is this when you?
That's James, right?
Yep.
I'm on it. Here we go.
We your only meeting now?
Yes, yeah, I was in Board of Selectmen before. Okay. So I'm assuming you can see my screen. Oh, what?
You can see your screen, yes.
Oh, the show.
Okay, so as previously discussed, we are replacing the
James, can you talk a little bit louder? I'm sorry.
Yep, no problem.
Yeah.
Move a little closer to the microphone. All right. So as previously discussed, we're replacing two existing 48-inch pipes that currently go under Shelley Road, which are these two pipes here. So the stream comes down. I don't know why it's labeled as a brook as well, but the brook and stream meet and get channeled underneath the road via the two culverts and continue on. So this all stemmed from the fact that, one, we need to repave Shelley Road, and two, there is not adequate cover on these two pipes. So basically the blacktop is resting directly on top of these pipes. So what we are going to do is we are putting in two pipes that are equivalent to the 48-inch pipes. They're 36 inches high, so we're going to gain a little bit of height there, but now they're 59 inches wide. So hydraulically, they have the exact same carrying capacity as the 48-inch pipes. And basically when we do it, we're going to kind of flip flop and do one at a time. This way we still have a way for water to travel by. So we'll kind of block off one and then allow water to pass through. This will also keep the trench width, narrow enough to where we can do things such as plates or whatever we need to do to maintain traffic flow. One of the other things that we are proposing to do is we're going to drop 2 catch basins just to the, I'm sorry, I think this is the north, just to the north of these. I don't know where the north arrow is. Yep, just to the north of the 2 pipes. And the reason for this is because currently right now, like I mentioned, there's no cover on these pipes, and we're also trying to gain a little bit of pitch within the roadway. So right now it's really flat, and water kind of does all kinds of things in this area, especially on the southern side. It's very flat over here. So we're kind of just shave a little bit off. We're actually able to, by using the squish pipe, as well as dropping it at the inlets. One of them we're going to drop about 6 inches down because it's really not submerged in the water right now. It doesn't really allow adequate flow. And I think this one is actually reverse pitched as well, so it doesn't actually flow in the correct direction. And this other one we're dropping 0.3 feet, so a little bit under, or right around 4 inches, just to help maintain that flow. And that gives us enough pitch to actually grade the road down and create a low point there, which is what we're trying to do for the catch basins. Because what that now allows us to do is it now allows us to have a sump in the catch basins to help pull out those solids, which were never getting pulled out previously. So doing the catch basins does help our water quality. In terms of along the wetland, I will show you the wetland line is this WL line, which comes down, comes right by here, and then just kind of follows the embankment. So as you can tell, the pipes are within the wetland line. Same thing on this eastern or western side. You got the wetland line here, comes up, comes across, and comes back down. So the pipes are just within the wetland area. So we're going to kind of fix this, these areas. That's what this little stone hatching is. We're going to armor the banks with 12 inches of modified riprap, and we're also going to fill in the voids with 2-inch minus. This way, if we put too big a stone there, what's going to happen is the water's going to go through the stone, and then as water recedes, it's going to pull all the sediment out from behind it. So it's going to keep pulling the embankment. Even if we put the stone there, it's not quite enough. So that's why we're going to also put the 2-inch minus there as well to help really armor that area. And hopefully we won't have to touch it again. Aside from that, I know David gave me a couple of little comments, and I just included this for everyone's information. I tried to break it down so everyone can kind of understand exactly where the material was coming from, how much was going back for which process and where. So for instance, to replace the 2 culverts, it is we have to essentially pull out 69.9, so 70 cubic yards of material. When we put it back, we're putting back 61.25. Now, the reason why that's less is because, like I mentioned before, we're trying to drop that grade a little bit in order to create that low point. So it's not quite going to match up, but it is pretty close. The pipe installation, this is for the in between the 2 catch basins. So again, you'll see that we're pulling out almost 14 cubic yards and we're putting back 9. Well, that's obviously because the volume of the pipe can't really fit it all back in. Catch basin, well, I don't know why it's jumping around like that. The catch basin, we're pulling out 6.2, and then we're going to end up putting in half a cubic yard. Again, that's the whole volume of the catch basin. And we're pulling out 77.5 cubic yards for the road regrading. And that's essentially all in your upland review area. And then the activity within the regulated area, we're less than 2 cubic yards. Because again, we're only talking the edges of the pipes here. So there's really not a lot that's happening. We're just pulling the pipe out, putting it back, and we're re-armoring. So there's not a lot of disturbance that's intended for this area. While we're here, though, we are thinking that we're going to try to pull this pipe back in just a little bit because this is the property line. Not that it's necessarily an issue for us to have our pipe onto somebody's property, but to just save us a headache in the future if we ever had to come back, we're just going to pull that pipe onto our property. This way we don't have any issues with property owners in the future. Even though this property owner is actually a newly retired town engineer. So he's very understanding of what we're doing and in support of it. So that's essentially what we're doing. We do have our equipment staging area. We're going to have, this is roughly where our stockpile is going to be, which will all be within the tree line. So we're not taking out any trees. We have a little shoulder in this area, able to work. And that's pretty much where we're at. So any questions on this? I know we didn't actually do a site walk on this one.
All right, does any of the commission members have a question? Any questions, comments?
Straightforward.
Yes, Danielle.
Not really. I mean.
Do you have
the-
an estimate on
I-
time for how long it's going to take to complete this? It's a very narrow road and there's a lot of school bus traffic and a lot of other traffic there. It's going to have an impact on that.
Yeah, the overall construction time is actually going to be pretty quick. If I'm estimating less than 2 weeks, and we're working with the contractor right now to shore that up. But my estimate is about 2 weeks.
Do you know what time of year you plan to commence on this?
So this, ideally, we are looking for end of April, early May is where we're trying to land.
So this area is very prone to flooding, especially the houses that are on the southern part of the map. Their backyards regularly flood out. And I would think that that's a very rainy time of year to be doing this. Am I incorrect?
No, you're correct. It's not an ideal time. Unfortunately, so the two parameters of why we're trying to get it done when we are, one, we have a contractor who's doing another culvert replacement, the Codfish Hill one, in town, and that has to be completed by the end of April. Yeah, the end of April is their deadline to get that completed. So while they are in town, we are trying to get them to come and do this as well. So between that and the fact that we are trying to repave Shelley Road this year, it kind of puts the time crunch on us for this project in particular.
Sure, I understand that. I guess it's just not ideal. And I wonder if that's going to have an impact on the water courses there with all of the potential flooding out.
I will say, I know with this one, I'm going to be watching weather like a hawk and trying to stay on top of it, because if we know we have storms coming, there's no point in even opening it up until after. But like I said, I'm anticipating less than 2 weeks. The contractor that that we're looking at is very capable. To be honest, he can probably do it in under one. So it's, we're talking a short period of time. Yeah.
So full disclosure, this is the area that I live, so I travel that road daily, multiple times a day. And it looks like there's already been some clearing of there has already been clearing done on either side of the existing pave on the road. And I wasn't sure if that had to do with the upcoming paving and there were, God, I'm losing my words tonight. Storm drains have been replaced there as well.
Are you talking further down or in this area?
I'm talking in this area. However, you are correct. They are also doing that further down.
Yeah, I do know that there was some work further north, so further down the road. I know that there was something done. I honestly have
This
no.
area has been cleared, the shoulders have been cleared and pushed back.
The only work that was done was we made sure that we mowed the shoulders when we had the surveyor out there. But that was all the work that I know of. I can look into that, but that's the only thing that I know of.
Well, it's possible that that's what I'm seeing. So the cursor there was on the southern side, but this was also on the northern side. There's been a significant amount of pushback from the road, and it was brush and it was a mess. But
that I think that's what that was because in order to have this surveyed, we tried to clean it up for the surveyor to come by.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so we were just trying to mow to make it a little bit easier for him.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, Kevin, did you have a question?
Yeah, just based on looking at it briefly here, would the change in pitch on the road, to piggyback on Daniel's question, have any outcome on how quick the water flow comes off-road into the residence locations for flooding? And will it change any, because you're changing the pitch of the road, which therefore would change the water flow itself, would that have, it won't change total volume per se, but could it impact because of how quickly that ground could absorb water? Would it have any impact on the flooding of those local areas? That's really it. I'm pretty sure the answer is going to be no, but I wanted to ask.
Yeah, so the increase would be very, very minor. We're talking the ideal grading is less than 0.5% for the road. So it's essentially flat, and we're trying to get to maybe 0.5%. So it will allow water to travel slightly quicker. But in the scheme of things, we're still going to have, we're not proposing any bituminous curbing along the edges, which means we're going to have, a grass curb, which will also help slow it down, infiltrate in, especially on those smaller storms. Some of the larger storms, yeah, the rate may increase a little bit, but we're really not changing the grade that much.
That's what I figured. I mean, it was worthwhile to ask, but just.
Oh, no, it is a good question.
Any other questions? James, I have a question. So you're removing about, about 7 dump trucks of material from here? So it's no minor construction. It's a lot of movement of soils. The squiggly marks you got all around, is that like sediment fencing or is that just work area?
This squiggly fence, this is meant to be more of like the staging area for this activity here.
Is there some way, I don't know if there is, to protect like dirt from going into the stream, or how do you mitigate from that? I mean, you get a big machine in there and start pulling, it's easy enough to dump, half a yard into the stream by mistake.
Yeah, so I think what we got to look at is it's kind of happening in 2 separate phases. So the first phase is replacing of the pipes, which is all going to be self-contained into this small little area. And then we're gonna add the catch basins. Again, we're kind of contained into this small area where we can kind of control all the sediment. Then once everything is installed, that's when we're gonna regrade the road. And that process is gonna happen a lot like just milling pavement. Essentially what we're gonna, there's a good chance of how we're gonna do it is we're probably just gonna run the full depth reclamation machine across and try to continually set the heights with that, so that and follow the truck. So literally we're just dumping everything into the truck right in the roadway. We're not taking it, putting it to the side of the road, anything like that. It's literally just going to all be done in pretty much a pass.
Okay. Are you foreseeing closing the road at any point?
No,
Okay.
no, not a full closure. No.
All right, so it won't affect bus traffic or anything like that.
No.
for
Can't close that road because it has no outlet. So if
Correct.
you- once you get in
It's
and
one
That's why I
out-
was wondering.
Yeah, we really don't have our hands are tied on that one.
You don't want Danielle getting stuck there, so.
Yeah.
Maybe you do.
I just use the dirt bike.
All right, I don't have anyone else have any questions, comments, concerns?
Nothing.
Zoom, okay. Next step would be approval or denial, correct?
Right, so
Giving
this is a site plan review.
Right,
So you don't have the public comment period.
right,
And you guys just have a straight 65 days to review this.
Yep.
I believe I have the deadline for when you have to make your decision, the default period for you to make your decision, the deadline for that as part of your agenda.
can we make the decision tonight?
You certainly
If
can.
people are comfortable with it instead of dragging?
Yeah,
Okay.
I would just, if there are any comments that I can make, Mr. Chair.
Would you rather us hold so you could review this?
Oh,
Okay.
no, that's not why I
Okay.
say that. I just think it's just worth noting that all of the questions that you guys had, that you guys asked, whether it was knowingly or not, they're all in my comments. So,
Beautiful.
nice job with what you had asked. This was kind of meant to be a way to clarify some of the simple stuff. So this is your, and I apologize for the people that are, for the commissioners that are not here to have the benefit of looking at this. But essentially, the limit of disturbance, which is this line type here, that is this color. Then you have your pipes, which I imagine there would be phasing for that. That is what these are, and then this pipe connects to catch basins, and they would discharge on the western side of Shelley Road, because the water course travels this way. Or the southern side of the map, if you're talking from the way Danielle was describing, but that would really be the how I guess would you describe that, the southwestern. Yeah, right, okay. Some things that you guys should consider, obviously, you know, the timing for this is not ideal. Having a construction schedule perhaps doesn't have to be phased out right now, but something that reinforces to you guys that there's going to be a method to the madness, if you will. Perhaps to give some assurance that there's going to be a train of thought to how this gets done that's more embellished than what's here on the plans. What else was I going to say? I'm trying to keep this quick. You know, I think
So
it's, go ahead.
I have a question, Chris.
Yeah.
Asking for a construction schedule.
Yeah.
What is that gonna do? Because I know I'm not gonna look at it after this gets approved. The person who would look at it is actually giving us. a schedule.
Right,
Yeah.
so it would be them and it would also be me.
Okay,
Because as your agent, if
Okay.
it's not the soil scientist for this project,
Right.
who is Cynthia Rabinowitz, it could be myself.
so it benefits
That-
somebody. Okay.
Right, so
Yeah.
so while the construction is going on,
Okay.
James can keep tabs on it from an engineering perspective, right?
Okay.
I can keep tabs on it from a wetlands perspective, and if there's any change to his schedule that he has to make for whatever logistical reason,
Mhm.
he could bounce it to me, and be like, okay, what do we need to switch around, what's happening where, and so on and so forth. So if there are any changes, you have someone like me that those can go to
Okay,
after this approval is made, if there's any reason for that. I can't imagine that there would be any substantial changes to the plans themselves.
okay,
Because pretty much everything that's here is stationary, and the intent isn't to change them significantly. You wanna preserve the ability for the water course to continually flow while the project is going on. Obviously you have to maintain traffic like you guys were saying, so what's the balance for that? That's where having a schedule like that helps with that. The only other thing I was gonna comment on is that the pitch of the pipe is being it's being corrected. I don't know if you touched on that, James, but the way the pipes are pitched now,
yeah,
they're actually going up
Yep.
as you go downstream.
Yep.
So it's good for connectivity for anything organism wise that uses this. So it's less difficult for them to get into this. And obviously, you're not gonna have the work remain in a state of incompleteness
Mhm.
For too long to jeopardize that.
Yep.
So that's really all I had to say. I don't have, if you guys are looking for a resolution, I don't have either a resolution of denial or approval tonight. But I could have one crafted for the March meeting, unless you guys are so comfortable on rendering a decision for it now.
no, so James, can you put a construction schedule together?
Absolutely. Yeah. David and I will work through that, make sure everybody's happy.
Perfect.
No
So just kind of polling the commission members' feelings, would you be in favor of Dave drafting a letter of approval?
You got it.
Wow. Letter of approval for the March 27th meeting for us to review?
I would be in agreement with that.
Agreement?
Yeah.
Agreement. Okay, sounds like everyone's in agreement. So there's no motion needed for that. It's just, if you could do that, or do I need a motion?
No, it's a consensus for that.
Yes,
And
that's
then I
what the
would just-
consensus.
and then
So
I
we
would
will
just-
review it next meeting.
Yeah, and then I would just say for the record,
Okay.
yeah, that we're gonna continue the site plan review for this at
Yep.
the next meeting, March 27th.
Yep, so this will be continued now till March 27th.
That's correct.
Okay.
I do have one question for the commission, and it's only because it was in one of David's comments, and I would just like to know what everybody's thoughts are on this. Currently, we have this paved runoff right here. This is there now. Would you like us to take that out? Leave it? It makes no difference to me either way. Yeah.
Are you asking if that comment should be taken out?
No. If you would like this to remain, this paved runoff. So how it's set up right now is water will come down here and then it goes out this runoff. But by us lowering the road, we don't necessarily need that anymore. And then, now it'll, actually go to the catch basin like planning. So if you would like it removed, just let me know and I'll just pull that off.
I would refer to your expertise if you feel it, and Dave's, if you feel it's worthwhile removing it and not harmful, absolutely. Otherwise, whatever you feel is the most beneficial approach.
Well, the most.
Clarify what that is. I'm not even familiar with that.
So it is very hard to see from the road.
It must be under a lot of brush.
It is. So essentially what it is it's a piece of blacktop that extends off to channel the water in that direction.
Into that stream.
Correct. Yeah. Into the stream right here. So the water will, any water that's here, because normally actually this used to be the low point, one of them. So I got, 442, 441, but 446 over here, or 444.6 over here. So the water was kind of staying over here. And this was the relief for that water. But now with us dropping the grade of the road, we no longer need this for the water. It doesn't hurt for it to stay there. It's not going to capture any water, but we're also doing work there anyway. And if the commission would rather us pull that piece of blacktop out and put some seed down, then that's fine too.
Good luck with the seed with everything else that's there.
I know.
Is there a general consensus on the committee, how they feel about the blacktop or runoff?
Yeah, I mean, if it's not.
Because there's no positive or negative, I would revert to our engineer, to be honest. Like there's no real difference in what we choose to do with it. It's not gonna have a negative impact to the book or to the wetlands, because the water is gonna end up in the same place.
I think the biggest wetland impact is we are now disturbing an additional, 8 square feet.
James, I think the committee feels that for you to make the determination, make the proper adjustment to the plans.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay.
Okay.
Wait,
Mr. Chairman,
yes,
I know this is unethical to interrupt how we normally do things. We do have 2 applications that are on the agenda to be
Okay.
accepted, and we have the applicants that have been waiting
all right,
to
so you
do
want to
that.
skip,
So could we table the discussion for our next site plan review and move
Sure.
them up next on the agenda?
is there any motion?
Yes.
I make a motion that we table 300 Whittlesley Drive to the end of the agenda and move up the Benedict Road and our Patty Lanes west.
A second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Abstain. And again. Okay, thank you. So next on our agenda would be Benedict Road 8, 10, 8, 9, 10, and 17 Millbrook Road.
Thank you. We appreciate your accommodation and moving this up on the agenda. So we don't need to- And hopefully you get to go home soon too.
Almost there.
We'll be brief. My name is Peter Olson. I'm an attorney with an office here in Bethel at 275 Greenwood Avenue. I'm here tonight on behalf of Steiner Inc. Steiner Inc. is or will be the owner of all the land that's the subject of this application. The property is on the corner of Benedict Road and Stony Hill Road. And we've been calling it TBD Benedict Road because we'll have a Benedict Road street number. But right now, it's all one parcel or 2 parcels. That go through the Stony Hill Road. The Stony Hill Road portion is not included in the application. Millbrook lots are at the end of Millbrook Road. The portion of Millbrook Road that you see as a finger extending there is not developed, doesn't exist. It's just a paper road. And so it's the 4 lots at the end of that. Our wetland scientist, Jim McManus, I believe, is still on the Zoom, or at least he was earlier.
Yep, he's there.
But I'm not gonna have him talk. It'll be harder on Zoom, but he's there to answer any questions if you have them. Let me have Doug DeVesta, our project engineer, orient you as to the extremely minimal nature of our wetlands impacts. Doug.
Okay, good evening, Doug DeVesta, professional engineer, represent the applicant. How are we gonna work this, Dave? Can they see it or not?
Yeah, I'll get the shared screen and then I'm just trying to
Okay.
distribute the site plans. Take one of each, guys. Yep.
It would make sense just to move the easel, or they won't see it anyway.
They won't see it anyway. I will bring up the engineered site plans that were submitted for this application up on the screen.
So the plan that Doug has, the hard copy there is called presentation plan. It's by Abigail Adams of A2 Land Consulting.
That's mine here.
That's yours?
Mine, yeah, that's mine.
You did the coloring, Doug?
Coloring, yeah, not bad, huh?
Never mind.
There was a whole college class. That coloring, so.
Doug is very talented.
So,
All right, go ahead. Doug.
okay, so our property, so Benedict, Stony Hill Road is to the north of us. So we're about 500 feet up, almost across from the micro hotel property where the road starts to bend. As Peter mentioned, we've got about a little over 7 acres parcel, then we cut it off to about 6 acres and so. So Millbrook Road is just a paper road. We own the properties on both sides of it. The lighter green areas here, there's a wetlands finger here, a little pocket here, and 2 pieces here. And there's little wetlands within the road, the paper road of Millbrook.
Their proposal is to have a driveway come in. They have an internal driveway, 24-foot wide, 22-foot wide driveway to service 22 single-family residents. Will be, each will have their own driveways, water, sewers available. Still looking into service with gas. We've also got a detention area that we're proposing in the central portion of the site itself. So all the water will drain, most of the water from all the road from the road runoff will drain, sheet flow into our detention system, retreat it through a bioretention area on top, infiltrate down into a structural detention system, then metered out to a structure at the end, then it'll go into a performance scour hole, and then rip wrap down towards the southern property line and out towards the larger wetlands to the site there. Drainage wise, we looked at it and we've got a 0 increase in runoff for the 2, 10, 25, and 100-year design storm as required by the town engineer. And as you've probably been by the site many times, most of it's open. This portion through the center portion of the site is all meadow area. It's cut maybe once or twice a year. And we got little tree areas up on the southeast corner, and then the area where will be all open space is treed with some scrub growth in there. And there's an old detention system that was created back when Millbrook Road was being developed. So that's just really general ideas what we're doing in this project. So if any questions, we can glad to help.
Doug, point out the exact areas of the wetland impact.
Wetland impact is right there.
How many square feet is that?
It's about 45 square feet of disturbance, because what we're doing, there's a sewer line that runs down through Millbrook, takes a sharp turn, goes to the east, then sharp turn to the north, and feeds back out into Stony Brook Road. And that's where our sewer line is being tied into. This orange line that I'm showing right here is where the sewer line being tied into an existing manhole. So it's an existing manhole we're tying right into that piece there. This red line here is your upland review area. So we got these houses all within the upland review area and the detention system as well. These houses are partly in it, and all this area here is outside the upland review area.
Thanks, Doug. Essentially, all of the 4 Millbrook lots will be part of an open space area protected by a conservation easement, and that's the bulk of the wetlands on the property. So obviously, tonight you're accepting the application, and what we're hoping you'll find is that we are not presenting any significant activity, and that we can proceed to present the project in detail as we go forward on your regular agendas.
Okay.
As I said, Jim McManus is available if you have any particular questions about the nature of the wetlands themselves.
Nope. Is everyone aware where this property is?
Yes.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions at this time? Anyone from the committee? Okay. You're gonna need help to go ahead.
Yeah, so I think the first thing that you can ask me to help you with is,
This up to,
right,
Yeah.
so, but before you do that, the numbers that are most pertinent for you to know, the total area on these properties of regulated upland review area where the activity is taking place, the total area of wetlands that's being disturbed on these properties. Whether or not this property is within a public water supply, because then that would trigger you guys in your aquifer responsibilities. And I don't know if you guys need any more information on the existing conditions.
but wouldn't
terms
that all
of
be at the
those.
next meeting? Would they present?
Right, but I think I'm trying to speak to what
Okay.
Mr. Olson was saying in regards to whether or not you believe the proposed activities could be, or you would consider them to be either a significant impact or a core activity, which would
But we're not
the-
determining that tonight, we're determining that.
well, that's one of the things you have to determine, because then that determines the mechanism for how you go about reviewing this application.
Oh,
So you
public
can either,
or-
so you can either do a site plan review
Okay.
where you have 65 days, and that's your default period, and then you
Right.
have extension time, or you have a public hearing where you have 65 days to accept it, a 35-day period for a
Okay.
public hearing, and then 35 days to render a decision. There
Okay.
are more materials that the applicant is required to submit.
Yep.
If you guys do believe that there is a significant impact.
Okay.
At least for what is being proposed, I believe the applicant has some of those materials as part of their application submission, in the form of, let me go to, the application itself here, so just bear with me. So there is a wetlands assessment / impact analysis report from Mr. McManus. And that goes into what the wetlands are, goes into your functions and values, describes the proposed activities. I believe that is part of the materials that you guys have, so if you want to take a minute or two to read through that, I think that would be worth for you to do that at this time.
Okay.
What's that?
Every night.
Yeah, absolutely.
So maybe just a couple things David said. Under your regulations, any excavation or filling in wetlands is considered a core activity, at least in terms of calculating what the fee was, and we agree with that. We have 44 square feet of those activities, and that cost us $18 per your fee schedule. But we don't think we don't think that's a significant activity that requires a public hearing. We think you're perfectly capable of conducting the exact same review of a project, whether it's a site plan review or a public hearing review. It doesn't make any difference to us. We're going to give you the same information. And then I would note as well that the Planning and Zoning Commission is going to have public hearings on this because we have special exception applications and the map amendment application. So the public is going to be fully informed as to what's going on. We just think we prefer to deal with you without the time strictures of the public hearing, the requirements to open and publish notice and conduct it and close it and make a decision. So we think you could do just as well as the site plan review, and that's what we would prefer.
And Laura and Danielle, I know you don't have the benefit of having hard copies in front of you, but all the documents are on the Google Drive. So feel free to refer to those as part of the commission's review for acceptance of this application.
Okay.
So can you talk a little bit about this temporary impact associated with necessary routine maintenance of existing town drainage outlet? Is that the one all the way at the end?
No, that's the one at Millbrook, that's on Millbrook. Greg Steiner.
Yep.
So when we built these four houses, there's four houses that come off of Millbrook. There's the turnaround is here. The storm sewer comes down and basically butt ends right in this location.
Okay.
From both Oldfield and Millbrook. It was just an open trench. And over years, the salt from the road and the sand and the items have caused a blockage there. And the two houses that are here, both their cellar drains go right into the same location. So when we came here with a public hearing to get the zone change, both neighbors were concerned that we were going to add additional water to this thing, and they were concerned about flooding. When we walked out and looked at it, this area has never been cleaned since the day it was built. So there's actually a big, like 2-foot sump of there where the sand came. So all the water comes down. When it floods, it doesn't have a chance to go through here and out. It just sits there and actually backs up into the houses. So we thought that would be a good time to come and to clean that out so that this way we can ensure just this tiny little bit area. Because once you get about around the corner, it's fine. This happens to be a raised manhole. So again, both pipes just end there. So we were just going to excavate that quickly or easily, just in very minimally, and which would then allow all the water to go where.
So that drainage just has to be maintained.
Yes, it had not been maintained.
Where are the wetlands in regard to the drainage ditch that has
It's
to be
right where
maintained?
this lighter color is the wetland was flagged by Jim McManus. So the wetlands are actually these two.
So you're going through the wetlands with the drainage ditch?
we don't even need to go. We basically gonna sit, we propose having a machine sit here on the edge and just clean out this little bit of a finger in this little bit of a wetlands area, just so that you could take out that pile of sand.
So the ditch, the pathway doesn't have to be maintained, only the hole.
Just this tiny little, exactly.
Okay, and who maintains that?
Well, the town should, but they haven't since it was built.
Okay,
1968 was this the original map.
is there any way to design it differently that it doesn't, like it flows naturally to light? Like, can those two pipes be connected to another pipe that drains to daylight? You follow me? I've seen the town clean the 4-inch drainage ditch with a 24-inch bucket. And it's a mess.
I think it's just the years of sand coming through the storm sewer
Okay.
and just kind of blocking. I mean, it's very visible when you're out there. You can see the pipes and you can see it just, there's a.
Well,
high
the
spot.
concern is the
longer term of it?
No, the two pipes that go there are
Yep.
from the houses, correct?
No, the two pipes are actually the road drainage.
Oh, all right,
And-
I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
Okay, so there's two, the storm sewer that picks up Oldfield
Okay,
and Millbrook come here and they basically just daylight.
and they
right
just
there.
end there.
It happens to be that the two storm, and in that same
Okay.
location is the cellar drains for these two houses. So when the water comes here and it doesn't have a chance to flow naturally,
It backs
it
up.
backs up into.
So the drains for the houses are a little bit higher up.
Exactly,
Okay,
exactly.
so basically it just percolates up and then the sheet flow?
Yes. Well, no, this is a fairly well-defined
Right.
channel. And then it kind of works its way here, and then it comes across into this, where my finger going is a fairly well-defined, it's flatter area. This is just, it was a channel that it had gotten filled with road silt over the last 20 years.
Okay. All right, I would just like to explore that a little
Sure.
bit more.
Okay, we can do that.
Yeah,
I mean, theoretically, we're not doing any work on those Millbrook lots, except. for-
Right.
We just thought when we realized that the neighbors were concerned,
Concerned.
we wanted to look at it for ourselves, said, oh yeah, that's why
Yep.
it's been flooding, and we would be happy, we'd be willing to do that for the neighbors.
thank you. I don't have any other questions.
And not without further review.
Right, I need to.
And definitely
take time to
sidewalk on
read.
this one too. I know we're not there yet.
Yep.
So,
I'm sorry.
so what are your thoughts with either option to accept this, for which to review this application? Would say would be your first topic of conversation.
So does anyone have any opinions? Is this should be a public hearing or a site plan review?
I mean,
Do a site plan review. I don't think.
it's a complete application and it's straightforward what they're looking to do, but it's in a magnitude that I might consider a public hearing, just for the benefit of the surrounding area. But if I remember correctly, the majority of your surrounding area is, it's not residential.
So on the Route 6 side
This side here.
Yeah.
is not residential.
It is-
not
yeah,
residential
that
here.
side is not
On the-
residential. Those
on
are
the
the
south
two-
side,
those
oh, wait,
brick
on the
buildings.
west side is Microtel.
Right here.
Yep,
On the east side is La Fortuna. I don't know what it is.
Michael's tap room.
Michael's
Tap
Tap Room.
room, open space here.
Open space and Michael's Tap Room.
I know exactly where you guys are.
Yeah.
All right, got it.
So-
And then you have residential here.
On this side is the R20, residential chimney.
Right behind it, like where you turn down the road. Yeah, okay.
Most of the
Like
lots along Benedict are owned by our corporate affiliates. So,
We own the two lots.
so we own a lot of it.
And we own the house across the street, right here.
But there is a neighborhood on Millbrook.
Yeah.
But as I said, we've already had one public hearing with planning and zoning when we put this property in the RT6 zone. And there's another one that we're gonna have to have because we have a zone change. We have a special exception for excavation and fill. And so, there will be public hearings.
So I'm always in favor of public hearing. But as it regards to wetland, I don't feel, I mean, I have questions on this, but I don't feel there's enough here to warrant a public hearing on this. and you're gonna have a public hearing or need to have a public hearing. It's not an if, you definitely have to have one with zoning, and I know you've had one already. So my personal opinion, I think we could do it as a site plan review. But that's my own opinion. So-
second that as well.
Yeah, no, knowing, especially knowing the location, everything else going on with it, I would agree with that. I would definitely want to like take adequate time for review, and
No,
I would definitely
absolutely.
want to do a site walk and all of our due diligence, but I think that we can, if we do our due diligence, that's adequate.
Just so the commission knows, if the commission receives a petition signed by at least 25 persons.
Right.
Then you guys accepting this application within 14 days, then you're going to a
Right.
public hearing by
So-
that process.
Am I allowed to ask if you've had any correspondence in regard to wetlands to this application?
Like Attorney Olson said, there may have been a question or two about the what Mr. Steiner was talking about when they had previously gone before the Planning and Zoning Commission. Who knows if there would be other wetlands commission wetlands related questions that would be raised if you guys didn't have a public hearing for those to be addressed at. I mean, that's kind of where you guys have to have a feel for what the neighborhood is and whether or not you think it's in the public interest.
I just don't think the amount of disturbance, I think there's a lot going on here, but I think that could be addressed by the committee members, plus, honestly, that it's the applicant who raised a concern from the public, which they didn't have to, about, the pit, I'm gonna call it, leads me to, again, I think we could do this without a public hearing. I think site plan review is fine.
I think most of the, since it is very minimal disturbance from a wetlands perspective, I think that most of the kickback's gonna come from P and Z anyways, which is, like you stated, they're already gonna have to have a public hearing on that.
Right.
Certainly, if a member of the public came to your site plan review and wanted to be heard.
They
you
can do
expect-
that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
they
was
can do
just
that.
gonna say, can't get them anyway.
Yeah,
There's really no functional difference.
right. If it was a case where,
Yeah,
Delaying.
it's formalities. is
yeah,
what it
if it was a case where the zoning board may or may not have one, I might feel different, but the zoning board's gonna have one anyway, so I'm comfortable.
So your next meeting is March 27th.
7th, yes,
Can you do a site walk before then? Do you want to do it after then? We won't be in front of P and Z till after that.
not this weekend.
Well, I would have the commission accept this application
And then
before we
Yeah,
schedule
and then
it.
decide.
Right, then, okay, so, seems like everyone's in favor of site, plan review, so I make a motion that we accept this application as a site plan review.
I second.
Okay, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those against and abstaining. Okay, so suggestion was made for a site walk. Is that the general feeling on the commission to do a site?
Yeah,
Sidewalk?
absolutely.
Okay. Danielle, Laura, site, okay.
What would you like
Yeah.
to have identified for this site walk, Mr. Chairman?
I definitely,
For that matter.
for myself, I definitely would like to see the pit. I would like-
You mean off of Millbrook Road?
You know what I mean, the pit, I'm gonna call it the pit. The end of the storm drains on,
We'll put a stake in it. It's pretty obvious.
thank you, yeah.
Definitely the wetland,
And then I'd like to have one of the
Wetlands are all
buildings,
flagged.
wetlands. and-
Yeah.
we will reflag them if they're not.
Okay.
one of the buildings in regards to the detention basin, one of the
Oh,
corners,
detention.
just as a reference.
Yes. So one of these,
Yeah,
unit number 7.
on the others, yeah, towards the detention basin
The
there.
detention basin's here, so we'll flag unit 7.
Yeah, just one of the corners is fine to, yeah,
Okay.
so you know where you're standing in regards to the whole,
Okay.
like, orientation type thing for
The
me.
one outside and the one up near the top there too. Those three small. right?
Yeah,
Do
that'd
that
be
one.
perfect, do a triangle.
Yeah. When there was that.
15, 7, and 9.
And if you don't mind, unit number 6, if you could flag that up, not just so that I can see it in person.
Yeah, we
it's
intended to
tough,
do
right?
that.
Yeah.
That's in the upland review, but I want to see it in correlation to the, I know that there's topographical features on the map, but it's always easier to see that when you're there, to see just from a topographical.
There's a stone wall.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Stone walls,
From the
it's fairly
topography
well
standpoint.
defined when you get out the site to see, we wanted to keep to the natural there, since the walls never made.
Exactly.
We'll go close to it, but that's, it's.
Yeah,
no
so
problem.
that would just, it's easier to use something like that in person than on this review.
So to put the unit numbers in order, 6, 7, 8, 15, 16, and 17? Is that what you're asking for?
I had 3, you had 1.
I'm primarily concerned with
7,
6, but it
15.
wouldn't hurt seeing 16 and 15 as well, because 17 will be just a little after that.
Once they're out there, it's easy
Yeah,
to put
it's-
stakes in.
Yeah.
And then
Like,
6 is here.
Which is fine, and I just wanted, my
So you're
primary
talking
concern with
6,
that is just seeing the
7,
correlation of how the topography works with
15,
the placement of the homes.
And then.
And again, combine one corner is fine, you don't have to.
Okay, and then I think it's also worth, or the commission should also consider, there is going to be this 15-inch CPP
Yep.
that travels behind these 2 units over here and ultimately outlets in this location. Would you want any of those elements staked?
I would stake where the, it looks like a catch basin or the outlet pipe is.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good
That-
idea.
that'd
I
be a
agree with that.
reference. I'm trying to remember the property, is it walkable? It's-
Oh, yeah, it varies.
I have been out previously with the applicants, as has Mr. DeMayo.
Okay,
So when would the commission like to have this site walk scheduled?
If you make it around 11 a.m., I'm happy to buy you. Michael's has killer. Just throwing that out there.
do they really?
Killer wings. So. But
How's
I'm
11:30? No.
11:30. I can make, it's 5 o'clock somewhere. I'm pretty flexible except for this upcoming weekend and
I wouldn't plan
weekend
this
just
weekend
before the
because of
meeting, so I
the
think my
weather.
family's good. Let me double check that date.
And give
actually.
them time to mark out.
Yes.
Double check.
These 2 weeks out.
So for logistics purposes, the Saturdays and Sundays between now and your next meeting are as follows. March 4th, March 5th, March 11th, March 12th, March 18th, March 19th, March 25th, March 26th.
I'm away the weekend of March 11th.
I am also not available March 11th.
The weekend after that's
Either
perfect for
you.
me. So weekend after that I can't do.
Does, what's that, the 18th?
Yeah, the weekend of the 18th.
And I'll
would be
give
very
the
good.
survey some time to stake everything too, so.
That'll work the 18th?
I'm not available on the 17th or the 18th, but I could do the 19th if we do it on a Sunday, or you can do it without me.
I'm fine on a Sunday.
I'm not
I
okay
feel
doing
like-
it without you, Danielle.
I think you'll survive.
March 26th is the only day I could do because I have to work every Saturday and I'm gonna be gone on the 18th and 19th.
Well, how many people do we need?
You need at least 3. I always recommend 4.
Got it.
We'll also let you know when it's staked, so if there's any commission members that can't make the formal site walk, they can go out. We can have somebody meet them there and walk them through it.
How many people can make the 18th? I've heard
I can
one
make
so
18th
far.
or 19th. So
Yeah, I know. Yep. Danielle, you cannot do the 18th. Laura, can you do the 18th?
No, I can't. I'll be in Hartford.
Okay. Then,
Then can you make the 18th or 19th?
yeah, yeah, only time I can't is the 11th. I'm out of state.
And again, Danielle could do the 19th. Why don't we just do the 19th? That puts 5 of us there.
Okay.
I can,
Danielle, can you do the 19th?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Laura, can you do the 19th?
No, I'm working at a convention that weekend, so that's why I can't.
So that'd be 4 of us.
For which day, Mr. Chairman?
The 19th.
19th?
3 to 5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Great to not have that.
Oh.
Booked every weekend.
Yep.
So what time do we want to go out there?
Depends on whether or not you guys want a beer and wings.
I know 19th is a Sunday, correct?
Yes, sir.
So I'm, don't want to interfere with anyone's church schedules either.
You tell me, guys, I'm flexible. Nico?
How's
Danielle?
9:30?
Do you have a?
I
do you
have no
a-
conflict on the 19th. I can do any time.
How's 9:30?
Done.
So we would need a motion then for
9:30 works for you? Okay, make a motion that we do a site walk on this property on March 19th at 9:30
AM.
AM.
And Dave's going to arrange for the weather to be sub-zero as usual.
I'll do my best.
All those in
For the
favor,
world with
signify by
Jack
saying
Frost.
aye.
but this-
Against, for the record, where are we gonna be meeting? Is there parking on site?
Yes, we'll let the gate open and you can park on.
The site is pretty well clear. So it's pretty obvious where we will all be on the property.
I know the pride doesn't know my luck, I'll park somewhere I'm not supposed to. Okay,
Thank you.
Any other comments for the applicant?
I believe you're all set.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for waiting.
Thanks for the patience. We have, Patty's Lane West next. Is there an applicant here or?
Mike's been hanging out.
I
I
thought
think
he
it was
just
just
like-
because he likes this.
I thought that you just like spending time with us.
Thought he wanted to talk oil stuff. You got me wanting wings, man.
Dude, I'm not.
I have done so well not eating wings in 2 months.
So good.
Extreme diet.
Yeah, I know. What
Why do
time
you
does
think I
not take
work out
close?
this? I
What
work
time does
out
not take
so
close?
much just so I can eat wings.
We're all going to then yell how for wings afterwards.
I'm getting hungry.
I bet.
Yeah.
All right, good evening. For the record, Mike Mizuko. I'm representing the applicant, Mike and Linda Rizzo, on this parcel of land at 4 Aunt Patty's Lane West. The property is currently vacant. It's a proposal to construct a new single-family residence. Land is in the R80 zone. It needs a well and septic. And there are 2 small areas of wetland just touching inside the site on the north. Sorry, I need a north arrow on here. So this top of the page is the north side. You can see in blue the little areas of wetlands that were flagged by Jim McManus. And the pink highlight is the regulated area. So we have about 0.13 acres of work in there, and most of it has to do with just some grading to level out the backyard and part of the just septic and some grading for constructing the septic system. We do have the stormwater management system here, and we did look at doing a rain garden, but because the site slopes from east or west to east, and Wolf Pit Brook is just east of the property. But because it slopes down, they wanted to try to level it out. So we're cutting the area here, filling this side on the right side of the house where the driveway is. And so we have just 2 rows of Coltech chambers there. So we're picking up drainage from the dwelling and most of the driveway. There's a couple of pieces that we couldn't pick up, but we account for that in the drainage calculations, again, going for the 100-year storm event. And so we have a discharge here along with the footing drain discharge just outside of the regulated area, but I pointed out because it is draining in that direction. Once you get down to this area, it becomes very flat. So, yeah, about it.
Is that all lawn? Like
No,
It
and
was, right?
it was,
That was my, gonna be my question.
so the property, so Mike and Linda owned it. They sold it to their daughter and son-in-law. They were gonna build a house. Then they decided not to do it, and then Mike and Linda bought it back, and so they're moving forward with this house plan. Somewhere in between all that, they cleared a lot of the property.
It's all clear.
I think I know a lot.
Yeah.
Does it say who's the property owner towards that side?
This side?
Yeah.
Don Goodrich.
I know a lot.
Yeah.
Okay,
And Don lives, and then there's another, I forget the other road there. He lives on the corner.
right.
Wetlands member, right?
Yes, it was.
Former chair.
Yeah, chair.
Yep. So, yeah, there's a lot right here, and then the Sunset, no.
Yeah, Sunset.
It's Sunset. Yeah.
This is the first lot on Sunset Hill Road that is to the properties east, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, there's a corner here. This was the original. I actually did the soil testing for the people that lived here and owned this piece.
Right.
And then they sold the house and then sold the lot,
Right.
and Mike bought it, but. Yeah.
If I may, just in the interest of time, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, please.
So you're going through the same process as to whether or not this is a site plan review or public hearing. Again, the numbers that are most pertinent to you, the area of regular development review area on this property that's getting disturbed, the area of wetlands on this property, if any, that's getting disturbed, and whether or not we're in an aquifer protection area.
Okay. Is there anyone on the commission that feels this needs to have a public hearing?
No.
Okay. Everyone okay with the site plan review?
Yes, sir.
And make a motion that we accept this as a site plan review?
A second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All those against?
Aye.
And abstain. Okay, so this will be on the
Next meeting agenda.
next meeting
Next
agenda.
meeting.
Right.
So do a site walk or
I'd like to.
no?
I know the area. I'm okay, but I will.
Okay.
No, that's
Like,
fine. I know the
go.
properties.
Okay, that's fine. I'm just
Okay.
asking, so.
I mean,
Nico said he would like to do a site walk. Yeah. Okay.
So do you want to do it the same day
I'll
as we
just
do
do
in
it.
Millbrook?
Let's do it the same day. If everyone's okay with that,
What was I?
the 19th of March.
19th.
Sunday.
It's a Sunday. You would probably be around 10:30 then.
All right.
About an hour for the other one. Dave?
I'm
About an
sorry?
hour for the other one.
I would say an hour would be appropriate.
Oh, I will not be here on the
Okay.
19th. But I can get somebody to be there. And Steve DeMarco is actually doing the construction,
Okay.
so I can probably get him there.
Why don't we set up tentatively for that time if Steve can make it? Otherwise, we'll have to do it through communication another time. Does that work?
That's.
Yeah, I'll confirm with
Yeah.
Steve tomorrow. You
Okay.
said at 10:30, you said
10:30 on the
On the
19th, approximately 10:30. We have a site walk beforehand.
Right, of course. Okay.
Yep.
All right, I'll coordinate with David on that.
So
I
I
make a
just-
motion that we do a site walk on, sorry, number 4 on Patty's Lane West on March 19th at 10:30.
I second.
All those in favor, saying by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? And abstain. Motion carries.
Thank
So
you.
that was
Perfect. Thank you.
10:30?
Oh, 10:30,
Yes.
yes.
Okay, cool. All right,
Back to 300. Whittlesey. Oh, no.
300 Whittlesey, that's, I believe, James, that's you again?
I'm still here. I'm awake.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Stop playing the video games, come back.
I'm here. I'm here. All
All right,
Um,
thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
You do.
Thank you.
Good night.
Drive safely.
Yeah. you-
thank you.
I believe, James, this is the one we did the site walk on a couple weeks ago.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions from, that could not be asked during the site walk that they wish to raise now? I thought the site walk was very informative, James. Thank you for
Yeah.
taking the time to explain everything to us.
Yeah, it was nice.
Yeah.
Of course, anytime.
I'm in agreement that it needs to be done. However, when question for me, Kevin, Commissioner, when you go down to the base of where your proposed area is, where you're trying to discharge the watering, there were a couple of large trees that might be just outside of your working area, but might be rooted into your working area. I was concerned about the well-being of those trees and if we could take steps to ensure the healthy survival of those trees. I think that, you would know better than I would. It wasn't a large sycamore that was on the corner.
I'm gonna piggyback on it just because that was exactly my comment as well. And then I know we talked about it a little bit, and you gave us some preliminary like assurances and understanding of what we were talking about, which I think you have. But my new thing that I just realized is that potentially with this species of tree and wetland species in particular, what I find often is that the tree root systems can potentially go fall much more extensively like outward from the tree, more so than normal trees, which are usually contained to like under the drip line or whatever. Or pretty, you know what I'm saying?
So what we can do, especially in regards to that one sycamore tree, because I know that that's the one that's standing out in everybody's minds.
Right.
What I can do is I can have our town tree warden meet me out there, and we can determine where the area is that we need, all construction activities need to stay away from it in order to protect it, and we can demarcate that in the field prior to any construction activity starting. So if there's any other specific trees that any of you were concerned with, just let me know and I will do the same thing with those.
That was my primary. The other thing too that I have is that there's no doubt that something needs to be done, or else things, a mass quantity of erosion which will happen, which will cause more disturbance than we want to begin with in that area. So that's not in question. However, mitigating the risk of decisions, we're burying plastic into the ground, which is also a non-biodegradable substance, which it's kind of like lesser of the risks, right? Because the other risk is we just kind of destroy the area. And I'm sure that you already have, and you explained the two options that we went through already. Is there any kind of alternate naturally occurring drainage option we could consider that wouldn't have us putting plastics into the ground while still alleviating the situation?
Not.
The answer may be no, but I have to ask.
Yeah, no. So not in a. So because this is more of a retrofit, kind of we're coming in at the tail end of a project, it's a little different than dealing with something prior, before construction starts. That would be the only time where I'd say yes. Here, realistically, those are the two options: is the stone line swale and the pipe. At least at this point, because the only other alternatives are to be significantly up gradient and expanding underground detention, which results in, ripping up pavement, ripping up all this brand new stuff that was just installed at the schools. So it's, and unfortunately to also require that as well, this system was designed, and the amount of water that's going in this direction was designed based upon all the regulations. So now if we were to try to reduce that, we would be going massively above and beyond any like written regulations in terms of, restricting stormwater from traveling in this direction. So I think as a municipality and, in terms of a wetlands commission view, we want this area to be as stable as possible, prevent future erosion in the best way that we can. I think that's kind of where we're at.
I understand. I do understand. I totally respect the decision too. It's just I'm a big advocate of not putting artificial substances into a natural habitat if it can be avoided. But I do understand the situation that we're placed in by the pre-existing conditions.
Yeah.
So it leads me to a heavy-hearted decision I'll have to make, because it's something I wouldn't like to do personally.
I get it. I will say, I get the concern, especially with the plastics. However, the upside to the plastic over something, like corrugated metal or something like that is, the plastic's really not going to leach out. I mean, not the plastics that are created nowadays, maybe from like the 60s, those plastics were crazy. But in terms of like corrugated metal as an alternative for piping, now you're worried about the oxidization and the rusting of it, and everything else. And now what is that putting into the stream? So I still think from an environmental standpoint, the plastic is still probably the way to go. And we're doing it in an area where, one, it's already disturbed, and two, it's a trail. So it's not like we're going through growth, or we're trying to minimize that to the best extent possible. We're trying not to just take it and go right around trees and things like that. We're trying to stay away from as best as we can.
And correct me if I'm wrong, we also don't do concrete because which is a natural substance, but in order to get concrete into that particular area would cause a lot of destruction of habitat simply to get it into the area in which you're working to begin with. So that would cause more destruction than being able to carry and place plastic into the location.
Yeah, and due to the steep slopes, that's what's kind of ruling out using something like concrete. That just makes constructability very, very, very difficult. Because a lot of this work has to be done by smaller equipment, just due to where it is. So now we're trying to carry these heavy pipes on a steep slope. That's a recipe for disaster.
James, that was one of my questions, is how do you plan access? How are you getting in? Is it through that gate that we walked in from that other parking lot?
Yep. Yes, sir. I was trying to pull it up on Google Earth, but I didn't get that far. So yeah, it's going to be through that gate.
If I can jump in, it's going to be through a different gate than the one we walked through. We're installing another gate to make that area more accessible, not just to do the work, but also gives the town more access to that back area, the trail, the disc golf area, etc.
Nancy, was it over on the other side of the playground where the disc golf was coming through?
That's where we
So,
No, it's actually so when we started the walk at the stormwater management detention basin and then came back towards where we finally walked through the gate. There is one gate there, but it doesn't get us through to that area. So we've got to put a second gate or move the one gate just so we can access that area. Both areas need to be accessed. The detention basin now has.
We're gonna have to move remove some fence in order to get back there. But essentially, we're going through the detention basin area in order to get back there, because where we entered was back here.
Yeah.
And where we're gonna have to enter with the equipment is over here. So we're gonna have to kind of come in this way. And luckily there's really no trees in this area. Because this is a rock outcropping here, and you know what I mean. So we're gonna kind of sneak our way in and come in this direction here.
Nancy, could you give us your name and role for the record, please?
You're trying to sneak it, so back up.
Nancy Ryan, and I'm the chair of the Public Site and Building Commission.
Thank you.
Nancy, James, this is Nico Jordan. Can this be an opportunity potentially to do any invasives clearing in the area there along the trail or anything? Is that appropriate? Possible?
I don't know. I know that Park and Rec has been looking at that and a lot of the different, they're doing a large amount of getting rid of invasives at McCower Park. Walk around the loop there. They've done a lot of trying to get, there's so much stuff growing up in the trees there, spraying the trees. I don't know is in digging all the way down there, if we want to start kind of going out from there, doing.
Yeah, I don't know where you're drawing
invasive,
the line.
et cetera.
I know.
Yeah, That's
So-
kind of
so-
hard.
I would love it, because I noticed a lot of barberry.
Yeah.
That should come out,
So
but
so to address your comment, Nico, what I would say is if there are any invasives that are removed as part of the work, that the applicant have some kind of mechanism or some kind of monitoring to prevent the reestablishment of invasives in that area, or the areas that are disturbed. So if there are plantings that get put in, or if there's surfaces that you're trying to get other plants into, you would want to have something in place to prevent barberry or multiflora bush from coming back.
I guess so. Yeah, I don't know too
I,
much about that.
I would say that would be your recourse for how to address that issue.
Okay. I didn't want to make too big of like an ongoing maintenance thing. It's just a
Right,
project.
right,
But
'cause-
if they're gonna be there digging with the machines and if they know what they're doing
Yeah, it's understood.
to clear their way in,
Yeah, you cannot request the applicants to go above and beyond what they're proposing to do. So you can't ask them to, clear like 200 feet out from the trail in another direction of any invasives. Because it's unreasonable and it's a burden that you're placing on the applicant on top of the work that they're already proposing to do. But if you're saying within the activity area, if that's where you're focusing, then absolutely.
Well, at least.
Yeah. But that's how I would focus that. And I do make a comment I do make mention of such a idea in my staff comments, so. Yep.
Yeah.
Work on it.
It's like if you.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you.
Any other questions?
None for me.
James, I got two questions for you. The plastic pipe we're using, it's not smooth inside, it's rigid, correct?
Correct.
They make a plastic pipe like that has, I don't know the correct terminology, speed bumps, so to speak, for the water, like you see on the highway, naturally made, the stone, that for water to slow down, like I don't know, like bumps in the pipe more than rigid.
I
Follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, I've never come across anything that where pipes have that. Now that's not to say that there isn't anything, because I could see somebody trying to do that, but even just us trying to get corrugated interior and finding it was a pretty sizable task. Like they're literally not making it right now.
Right.
So all this pipe I had to scrounge around, or I'm kind of scrounging around from multiple vendors to find enough for us.
Okay.
If I can.
Just go ahead.
Yeah, if I can go on that in more detail. The idea with having a pipe is you don't want to detain's not the right word, but you don't want to.
No, I don't want to create detention. I want to create less speed hitting the output.
Yeah,
with
so
it, that's all. But if you
yeah,
can't do it, you can't do
no.
it.
So that's an excellent question and a comment to make, and I believe part of James's design incorporates an element at the bottom of the pipe.
Yep.
So to address the velocity of the water before it ultimately goes into the water course. So
I'm
that-
just looking to see if we can add to that flow. That's all.
Oh, sure.
If there was a standard pipe like that, which there doesn't seem to be, so that's fine. Other question I had is, when is this work looking to be done, or and because we're in a very public area, meaning the pathway and also the school, with machinery going through, a school complex, what safety regards is there for that machinery as it goes through?
Well, so Nancy, you want to answer the first part on when ideally public site would like this all this work done?
Oh, we'd like it done as soon as possible. We kind of thought spring, which hopefully April would be a good time to start. And we just finished both renovating and doing new construction on both Johnson School and Rockwell School while students were attending school. So we've had kind of been through this for the past 3 years of having things, phases that either time-wise, there aren't students. And both during the day and through the school year. So there are certain things that we had planned out, we did when there were no students in the school, and other things like deliveries, et cetera, when students were in school, deliveries had to happen before school started. And we couldn't have big trucks going through school access other than during certain times of the day. So that's the same kind of thing I think we're going to have to do here. If we had to wait, and we could have a discussion about this. This is going to take a little while, obviously getting things set up, and also.
I just want to make sure there's, I mean, I know this has been done, I mean, all the school projects and stuff, just, you know, safety up and supporting going through it. Also on the site as well, let's say you're doing this on a, I don't know, summer day, no school, Tuesday morning, there could be hikers going through. If there's some type of, and almost like a street sign entering work area or something like that, so people are aware, not looking up at the beautiful trees and falling in the ditch.
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
gonna
I think
have
that-
to mark our
Yeah.
working areas, because like you're saying, we're either contending with school, we're contending with hikers, we're we have a lot of things in terms of public that we're contending with. I will also say, you know, an upside to the renovations that had happened on the school is now that this drive actually comes around.
Yep.
And that's going to be the main access. So it's not like we're going through like main parking areas or going right in front of the schools. Like we're able to kind of shift construction vehicles, at least for a path, you know what I mean? So at least that's another benefit too.
Great. Okay. Any of commission members have any additional comments, questions, concerns? Okay. I make a motion that we approve the witness. Go ahead.
I don't have a draft resolution of approval
so-
for you guys, ready? Well, if you wanna wing it.
Nope, I'd say we do the same thing. It's the commission, so right, do ask direct Dave to draft a letter of approval for the Whittlesey Drive project to be reviewed at the next meeting.
Okay, I can do that.
So I extend this to, do I have to extend it to March
No.
27th? Beautiful, okay. Next on the agenda, I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, of course, thanks, guys.
I think that's everything on first page. New business, make a motion or discussion on Inland Wetlands Commission regular meetings. Anyone have any comments, concerns, questions over the minutes meetings from 123?
No.
Nope. I make a motion that we accept minutes as is for the Inland Wetlands Commission regular meeting minutes of January 23rd, 2023.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against, abstain. Beautiful. Commission special meeting minutes on 2/11. Any concerns there? Make a motion, we accept the minutes for the Inland Wetlands Commission special meeting minutes for February 11th, 2023 as is.
I second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Abstain.
Yeah, that would be Greg and Laura, and then you can see, so that you have a majority for that, you can see Danielle for either Laura or Greg, either of them are there.
All right, so I'll see Danielle for Greg. There you go. Thank you. Ernest Media Group invoice, $448.40. That was for,
That's for legal notices for the public hearing for 17 Whitney Road. And before you vote on that, you can unseat Danielle if you will, and you can have Greg and Laura vote on that.
sorry, Danielle, you're unseated and I'll seat Greg for that. Okay. So make a motion that we approve the Hearst Media Group invoice for $448.40.
I second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Abstain. And against, okay. Old business, none. Staff comments, you got 150 Putnam Park Road listed.
Guy wanted to cut trees next to a pond, guy wanted to remove debris. I went out, I looked at it, told him which trees he couldn't cut, told him which trees he had to keep, told him what he had to do with the debris. And that's pretty much the wrap of it.
For reference, 150 Putnam Park, is that across from?
It's
Putnam Park?
almost across from Putnam State Park, that's correct.
Is that the property that was just sold?
That's, well, yeah, that's, but this is way towards the back, way up the hill.
Okay.
Is this the property that was just sold?
I don't know if it was
Has
just
a
sold.
house right on the.
Yes.
Working on that.
Yes.
Oh,
It's a
yeah.
Beautiful pond up there.
Yes, it
I almost
is.
bought it.
Yes.
I really wanted Putnam Park to buy this.
Yeah.
The land on the back.
Like
Okay.
the land in the back to add on. Yeah.
Stays with
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That'd be cool.
They didn't want the dam. I was told by the parks director that they didn't want the liability for the.
That
That's
makes
doing
sense,
it.
because that comes with liability,
They
having the
didn't-
dam in
They
the back.
really cleared them. Okay. Does any of commission members have any comments, questions, anything they'd like to bring up?
And then I would just add a period for public comment there too, Mr. Chairman.
There is no public. Anyone have public, or I'm sorry, on Zoom, anyone on Zoom have any comments they wish to express at this time? Okay, commission members, does anyone have any comments? I believe you said you have something.
Oh, yeah, and that's keep us here. How did you choose, how did you decide which trees to keep and which could go?
Ones that were dead or ones that were an endangerment to public health and safety. So in other words, if they fell, they could hurt somebody or cause damage to property. Ones that were kept were ones that were one of a kind, if you will, or if they were left untouched, they could be successful trees that would refill the canopy instead of the ones that were felled.
I'm on that right now. I have to take a look.
Can I go with you and do that? Second question, but serious.
Yeah.
You think volunteering services?
No, I don't know.
Keep
But
everything alive.
I would, I'm interested.
Yeah,
You know
if,
more of the trees than I do, so. Huh?
It's the Lorax.
no, I don't see, as
I
long
don't
as
see
it's
about
not a
trees.
quorum.
Cut it. Okay. Any other questions, comments, anything else any commission member needs to bring up?
And at this time,
I think we're all set. Entertain motion to adjourn.
Second.
I second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
You're adjourned.
Thank you.
Danielle, Laura, thank you for